Live from PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live post-war call-in show, hearing your first-hand accounts and war stories of battles from the previous conflict. So join the Discord right now through the link below. Hop in the general voice channel and get ready to share your stories. Tonight's featured guest, Clapfoot Developer, KrazyFlyinChicken. And now, your host, 9-time winner of the Jeffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Jeffrey Jennings.
All right. Let's see here. KFC, can you hear me? That's great. Let's see if everyone else can hear you. All right, one more time.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, there it is. All right, yes. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps, your after... Well, the intro pretty much explained it all. But we are on the precipice of the 45th conflict and the various myriad changes that are about to be brought into the war here. A lot of fundamental changes, long awaited, or at least long speculated, and now they are a reality. KFC, let's not mince words here. This is a game, and it takes a lot of work. How have things been at the Clapfoot offices, and also just at your computer? Because you're not there physically, are you?
No, I'm not. But it's been busy as heck.
Yeah, I can imagine. And how have things been generally, just for everyone?
Honestly, I think we're in this weird stage of our cycle where it's kind of lopsided, where we've got some of the guys are working on, or most of the guys are like overworked, like our programmers, trying to fix all the bugs, and then we've got some other guys who are like our artists who are just sort of like hanging out in the wings because their job is done and trying to help out with like the testing and things. So we're in this weird limbo state where, we're just trying to squeeze every last bit into this update out the door.
Yeah, I can imagine. Dev Branch came out about a week ago, the 4th, I think, soon, like less than a week. Is that the usual expected time for a good Dev Branch? Oh, about a week, or no? Is it longer? Is it shorter, actually?
We really wish we could have had a little bit more time, to be totally honest with you. The amount of time that we had for this was like, we actually needed to push it out after, we wanted to push it out after the dev stream, but we couldn't because we still had too many bugs and features to get done.
Yeah, like and to accentuate so many bugs that you couldn't, like it wasn't even good enough for a rollout or a dev branch.
Sorry, say that.
Yeah, so you're saying there were so many bugs at that moment in time, around the time of the dev stream, that you couldn't, that was too many bugs even for a dev branch or an early rollout.
Just an absolutely obscene number of bugs, and also complaints and balancing concerns, and all, like, with this update, because so much of the game is changing, there's so many different aspects of it we did not consider. Well, we did consider, but we didn't have a chance to figure out all the corner cases for. So a lot of it, we designed it, we went with what was cool, and then we were sort of working through those corner cases one at a time, and a lot of our testers found them, little things like, oh man, griefers are going to totally build these trenches on the road, and like we'd of course thought of this, but we didn't have time to address it yet. So now here we are scrambling to get those last issues solved, and I think we're starting to feel a lot more comfortable with it. We've got a lot of the major issues resolved, and we've got one last fix coming out tonight if it's not out already, and then hopefully the war should start tomorrow smoothly, but fingers crossed.
What's your most looking forward? What are you looking forward to come tomorrow, other than an absolutely perfect rollout where nothing goes wrong?
honestly, I just really excited to see the trenches. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look, or if any of our viewers have had a chance to see the live branch right now. But we pushed out the trench update into the resistance mode, so we can see people sort of using it. And it's really like the first hour it was out, like it was trench city, like between pits and salt farms. It was just a mess of trenches all down the road, all down the fields, and it was like watching the players just run from trench to trench shooting at each other was really, really cool. The only thing that was missing, because obviously there's not as much interest in this kind of like practice period where, you know, there's not like logistics isn't flowing. There wasn't a lot of like AI defenses setting up, but I strongly suspect that once the war goes live and people are starting to commit to it, that we're going to see some AI defenses go up. And what I'm really hoping to see, what I'm really excited to see, is like a no man's land, like where there's trenches, and then there's a big empty space in between them where, you know, if you leave your trench, you're going to get shot by either AI defenses or by players. And I'm hoping to see that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out, because a lot of we'll see how the economics behind Foxhole and logistics behind it all, how that's affected as well, because we're going to see a lot more materials and a lot more. You know, every time you add something new, that's another piece of the puzzle that kind of exponentially affects logistics. So we'll see what happens. This is part one of a two-part update. Am I correct?
Yes, and honestly, I think even calling it just a two-part update is selling it short. I think what we were really hoping to get in here was enough of the core foundation to get people excited for what can come from this system. Like we wanted to add, we had so many ideas for like different things you could do instead of just the engine room. The engine room was like, okay, this is one tool we could have to power the AI defenses, but we had like 6 or 7 more like different concepts of like bunker rooms that you could build that would be implemented, but we can't obviously discuss them, and we got to see how the engine room works out first. But we wanted players to just sort of get their hands on this first tool and then let their imagination take off, and hopefully we'll be able to take from those suggestions cool ideas for the future.
And in terms of the old logistics, the old defense meta, you know, we've got, you know, the old foxholes, gun nest, pillboxes. Are those still there? Is everything from before still there?
Oh, well, not everything. We've gotten rid of the sunken pillbox. We've gotten rid of the bunkers. The bunker is the tier 4 wall, not the new one.
Right.
We got rid of mostly because we just wanted to start, like, now that we finally got this update out the door and we've got these new structures going in and this new system, we wanted to start like either updating or phasing out a lot of the older ones. I mean, the sunken pillbox has been in this game for almost 2.5 years. It has changed its purpose like 3 or 4 times, and it's like it's right now it's this weird monstrosity of an AT turret that was never designed for. So we decided we were going to start with that one and with the bunker, because the bunker nobody ever built. Well, very few people ever built before anyway, and it was being replaced largely by these new trench structures, so we didn't see a purpose for it. But slowly but surely we want to go back over like all the old defenses, like the foxholes, the gun nests, and really give them another pass over and update them, their stats, but also their visuals, and then like hopefully unify the two different kinds of structure building, like the trenches and the non-trench structures.
If you're just joining us, this is Clapfoot Developer and Community Manager for the game, KrazyFlyinChicken, and we're discussing the winter update, the trench update that's about to hit here in just I think 18 hours. Yeah, that's about right. And it might even be a messy one, I'll say, but that's kind of how Foxhole is, right? That's always how it's been. No one ever really promised a clean rollout of anything. Would you agree with that, or no?
Yeah, well, it comes with the early access tag, but I mean, it's with these updates, with these big updates, it's always going to be a little bit rough and bumpy, but hopefully it doesn't feel too rough. And if it does, well, it'll get better. I mean, I think somebody mentioned this in the Discord earlier today, that like if you could look at this game from a year ago, like it would be completely different. You wouldn't even recognize the two games as being the same, and we plan to continue going that direction for at least the next couple of years.
I was looking over footage of back when the PressCorps was starting, and this was before funny enough, the thing that actually makes the biggest change for me is the typeface of all the letters of all the wording in the game. Is the typeface and how that's changed. Like now it's a much sleeker, cleaner design, and I'm so glad for it. But before it was, I don't even know what it was. It was like Times New Roman or something. And I don't know why that sticks out to me as like the old. Like now it's a much cleaner, like even UI in terms of the boxes. But before you were going for a very tattered look, which I completely get. But it looks nicer now. But man, that brings me back to the old endless shore, where it was just always a fight at Kelpie's Main, and it was I think 2 separate bridges, or even drawbridges. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Adam will be very happy to hear you say that, because he's been pushing to sort of update it for quite a while, but it's been a big like back and forth about branding and things that we just that honestly the rest of us don't really want to spend a lot of time thinking about. So it's like it's just been like a slow transformation. Everything, like especially with the promotional art, you can see like even that has been changing gradually over time. You can see the art style sort of like it went from this cartoony kind of like brighter colors kind of thing to this darker, like more gritty look, and it's been, but that's taken like a year and a half to get it that far.
So one of the members of the PressCorps mentioned this, and they said, "Wow, we're at 45 wars already. That's insane to think about." Like this is World War 45, if you think about like in that context of the world. And it's funny because I mentioned how the higher that number gets, the more grimdark it becomes and ridiculous, and the more perfect that becomes for the world, for the lore of Foxhole, because that's exactly where. I mean, at least from everything I've heard Matt talk about. Matt is the developer who's the point man in terms of lore. That's pinpoint perfect of where he wants things to go. This is just a horribly depressing world where lives just really mean nothing, and that makes the World War II look like a walk in the park compared to what's happening here in Foxhole. Maybe not statistically yet, but that's the feeling.
I don't know, man. We're getting there. What was that one war that we had like 1 million? There was 1 million deaths or 1 million casualties.
Was it 1 million?
I mean. Yeah, well, I think, was it 1 million or 100,000? I don't know. Somebody will correct.
Yeah, we're gonna have to ask Hayden to crunch those numbers for us. I think we've passed that. I would love to see a historical like grand total of all 45 of the wars. Oh my goodness. But anyway, yeah.
And it was. I remember when the World Conquest first came out, and we started in with the monuments. I don't even know if the monuments are still in there. With the new home regions, but the monument system, it was like I think the programmers were like, well, what happens when we reach like the maximum number that could fit in this area? It would just be like, it'll be ages before that happens, when like we don't need to worry about that now. And I think there was like 25 spots. Now it's like and it's completely forgotten part of the game. We're like, oh, it's rolled over, whatever.
Well, one question I want to ask you, just as a kind of behind the scenes thing, if you can answer. Before we get to callers, we'll get to callers very shortly, is how long had the medical changes, the hospital, the ambulance, the critically wounded mechanic, how long had that been in the pipeline from conception? Like when did the team say, or Mark or whoever say, you know what, let's dedicate to this?
Oh man, that's been kicking around for a while. Yeah. Honestly, we've wanted, like, it's been the way that our sort of design functions work is we usually just start with a cool idea, something that we really want in the game, like, and then it takes one of us to sort of draw up a design document. And in my case, I usually start with some player suggestion and then just like pull through it, like in the suggestions channel in the Discord, I'll just do a quick search for like medical, and just see if there's anything really cool that sticks out to me, and then we create a design document, which is like this really loose form of like it's kind of like a blueprint, but not really, because it's not exact. But we just start with a concept, we go back and forth, and then it becomes like we have to start being very explicit. We have to make decisions like what happens when you press E. Like E, it goes onto your shoulder and it becomes a large item. And when you have just that alone, that first bullet point is like, well, what is a large item? Well, now you need another design document for large items.
Yeah, that's a kind of a new fundamental too, right? Dropping just this update is the large items.
Yes, and it's like right now there's only like 2 large items in the game, but we want to expand on
gas
that.
Gas can, right?
There's the main artillery round for the long-range artillery, and then there is the critically wounded soldier.
How about the tripod?
That's not in yet. That's in January.
Okay. Well, lots of exciting things, and honestly, a lot of it's going to come down to just everyone discovering it, because, again, I want to accentuate the team, at least from what I've gotten, correct me, but what I've gotten is that the team is just so busy making sure everything is somewhat stable, not like crash your client, broken, and still working out some of the most basic balances. That, in terms of being able to write up a full documentation of all these new things, you just kind of have to leave it to discovery. I think that's kind of where we've landed in terms of a pattern.
Like for new features?
Yeah, for new features. Like, obviously you'll show them off on the dev stream, but in terms of a full tutorial, it just kind of leave it up to I Saw a Bear, and he'll disseminate that information.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's doing this for free.
I know, right? He's been amazing. He's been absolutely amazing. We try to commit as much effort as we can to helping him out, but he's just been absolutely stellar.
Yeah, he might actually join us later. Maybe not. I don't want to promise that or anything. But yeah, it's down to the wire, and here we are. It's finally here. Trenches, the long-awaited, long-thought, impossible trenches. But you know what? Let's get to the callers, and we'll field your questions here on the air. And if you want to join in on this broadcast that's currently happening live, make sure to join the PressCorps Discord through the link below. Click on that picture that says Discord, and then hop into the lounge channel so that I can drag you in.
Go on the call queue.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, hop into type anything into the call queue, and then I'll know that you'll be on there. So, first one in the call queue, actually is becoming a pattern here. Spots the Legionnaire calling in. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps.
It's not just gonna be a meme that I'm the first one in the goddamn call queue.
You just show up. I don't know until you aren't.
Yeah, but most of the time I am.
Oh, so Sir, for some reason. Hey, Sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Did I drag you in?
He's here.
Hey, sir.
Yep. I'm talking about why I'm kind of done with the Diagonal Wars. Last time I talked about my project fix the band war, but I'm talking about the sideway wars, if you know what I'm talking about. Instead of like east to west or north to south, we go in a diagonal. If you ever, there's something in the game I like to call. There's 3 types of choke points in the game: soft choke points, hard choke points, and a mix between a hard and a hard and a soft one, like a medium choke point. Hard choke points are areas that you can't really push into, and basically you have to go around them, but there might be other hard choke points around that area. Mainly around Callahan's Passage is a good example of a lot of hard choke points. Well, if we look at if medium checkpoints are more bridges, you can go around them, but it's still a choke point, basically. And soft choke points are basically majority of areas in the game, like mainly bush warfare.
It's okay. You don't need to explain it because Sir is a professional with choke.
So are you saying
he's
are you saying like thumbs up or thumbs down to these choke points?
I think we should have choke points, but not in the way we're doing it.
Okay, and how is the game currently doing it?
The game is currently doing it. I think they're good, but I think we need to get rid of the sideways map. Something what we had I forgot what war conquest we had, but it was east to west war, basically. And
I think that was about 2 wars ago.
No, that wasn't 2 wars ago. No, 2 wars ago was the last 3 wars: War Conquest 44, War Conquest 43, and War Conquest 42 were diagonal maps.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically what happened was that if we let's take War Conquest 34 for example, an interesting case in Foxhole history. For the first time in Foxhole history, Colonials had less casualties than the Wardens. And it's just a common fact that we always have more casualties.
I think statistically that actually tends to be true. I want to say at least 70% of the of the total complex. Colonials usually wind up with more casualties. It's so funny that's actually hard to pinpoint, even though most of everything is symmetrical. The only major differences, and they actually are major differences, are
the south are plains and the north are mountains.
Well, yeah, it's just asymmetry in the maps, right?
Yeah.
So that could absolutely be a factor. And then the other factor has got to be, it can be, is just over time, the various, regiments and the various personalities and leaders that have just kind of been built up in each other's factions. So.
But another thing is that this is a suggestion for an idea for a monument. Monument to remember J Cove. Like because J Cove was like a defining moment in the community's history.
So I don't want to. Right, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Matt here, but I believe Matt has said, the developer in charge of lore, not in charge of lore, but he has said that. I think I'm trying to remember a quote that he said, like, isn't there already like remembrances in terms of various art and various recordings, the report we did for the PressCorps, isn't that already a memorial enough? Do you need something in the world?
Yeah, maybe that's a good point, but let's get back on the map talk. The issue is that let's take, for example, in a war where the colonials have the more southeast area with the Blemish and Westover, and the Warrens gets Viper Pits, and you know what I'm saying. Basically,
so we're looking
what
at
happens
the
is that
northeast, I think.
Yeah, northeast. But what happens is that when we push across the river, in our case, is that we get bogged down due to one reason only.
We, as in colonials.
Yeah, colonials.
Okay.
We get bogged down because of mountains. They're basically almost impossible to push through because you can easily defend those little choke points.
Meanwhile, in the south, you're saying on the flip side of that, there's a lot of plains, open grass where wardens can just push on through in wide, long stretches of land. So you're saying that's something that's just too unfair. Yeah,
as well as that another issue is that our choke points are way too south. Take, for example, the Blemish, which is meant to be our fortress city. It's in Heartlands. And if they're in Heartlands, we already lost the war. The only time that we really pushed back from a war that we lost was World Conquest 19. But that was an interesting example of what happens when the community go on Christmas break and colonials have no lives. It's just a common fact that colonials really don't care about anything about life.
Well, generalizations aside, I'd like to hear Krazy's thoughts on it in terms of the map balance, and obviously we shouldn't get perfect symmetry in the regions and how things are spread out.
I agree with that statement.
I have a question for you, Spots. What is how did you feel about the war where it was the colonials on the northwest and the wardens on the
basically what happened was I was just playing through it, and then I was thinking after the war, wait a moment, why the hell did we win? And I was talking to Marcus and stuff about the whole. Marcus, actually, no, I think it was someone in the 45th that brought it up. Not Marcus, but one of his second command brought this up. Technically the map is currently, like, if we get the northern part of the map, if it's mainly diagonal, it's kind of fun, basically. Because the war, because I, by my skill, I was like, wait a moment. I think this really came to mind during World Conquest 44. I looked at the map, I was like, wait a moment. We're pushing down in the diagonal path into mountains, which is kind of tough terrain to push into in real life. And the colonials get open fields, and I instantly say, okay, I know we're going to lose this war. And guess what happened? We lost the war. But getting to the question, that war was actually somewhat fun, but winning because of map advantages is not what Foxhole's really meant to be about. It's meant to be about It's about to be the team skill, basically. And that's why I like that one war where you had Callahan's Passage, Deadlands, and Umbriel Woods as the fighting areas.
So you believe that you won that war because the map is warden biased toward the...
No, that map was colonial biased, War Conquest 43.
The one where they were starting in the northwest.
Yeah.
Basically, right, so you feel like the map is biased towards the warden, so that, like, the north side is better than the south, basically.
Yeah, but understandable in the lore sense, basically. They were defending in the mountains, and they were born in the mountains, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
KFC, what are your assuming that's I don't know if that's even true, but taking that is what it is. I think looking at the map here, we can safely say that the Wardens do have generally more mountainous terrain, and the Colonials do have generally more wide open plains and a lot more easier breadth of movement. What do you think about that, and just the general concept of just the lingering feeling of map imbalance, general regional map imbalance?
You know what? I don't really. Me and Matt have gone back and forth on this. Well, not. Or actually, it's more like the whole team has gone back and forth on this. But like, the bottom line is, we don't really care if one side is slightly more powerful than the other. I personally don't think that. I don't agree with the belief that the North is better. But I mean, it's been a long time since I've really been in charge of like a complete front. So you guys will know the answers to this better than I will. But I mean, I don't know. I think that no matter how hard you look for some advantage, right? Like if you find an advantage, like say Jade Cove, where you'd say the Colonial side is harder to take than the Warden side. I think if you look hard enough and spend enough time looking at it, you're going to find parts of the map that are balanced the other way. And it's impossible to really put that on a scale and come up with something that's absolutely perfect. Instead, we'd rather focus in on the micro stories that when somebody logs in, 99.9% of all players, they're not looking at how balanced the whole world is. They're only looking at their small corner of it. If I'm like a new player and I'm logging in, or even an old player logging into Abandoned Ward, the only thing I care about is Abandoned Ward. I don't look at Jade Cove. I don't look at Endless Shore. And if I think that it's a little biased towards the Wardens, of course I'm going to feel that way. And so that's how we want people to feel, is that there shouldn't be that you should want to feel like you want to explore more of the world. Like if this spot is too unbalanced for your side, maybe find somewhere else that isn't.
But I like to point this out about the sideways wars. Mainly if the Colonials get the northeast and the Warden Colonials get the southwest or that type of stuff, I'm fine with the map. I understand how it's designed. It's your child, basically. But basically what I'm trying to say is that maybe we don't do the southwest to northeast wars or those type of wars, basically. Maybe we just do it diagonally, like we did, or up and down, like something like that, to spice up the map, because it's kind of getting boring as well. For every like the last 3 world conquests were diagonal.
Here's even a wider question on that. Zooming out a bit, KFC, what is the general plan? How do I phrase this question? Plan towards how wars start. So I believe tomorrow for the winter update that things are going to start. It's the full map, kind of a quote unquote classic map where Colonials are in the south, Great Marches the center and south, whereas a reaching trail for the Wardens is the north and northern and most part and center for them as well. Kind of more traditional layout. What is this? In terms of map rotation, I guess.
Mention this actually about those types of wars. I consider them. I think the devs were designing the map, and all regions were a fable design basically. Every region was the same a fable. And when I'm looking at it, it's more balanced actually if it's the entire map available than if regions were blocked off basically. But I'm going to let KFC have a turn to speak.
No, I mean I think that's fair. We just want to keep it. Because again, like I said, we have to look at this from a perspective, from like a much wider perspective. I think that our veterans who have been playing this game for 3 years have seen every possible configuration and have looked at the map in 30 different ways, and have more than that, but played the map in 30 different ways. And it's hard to keep them interested in the game when it's like you take the reverse perspective, and there's like a brand new player to the game, and they just want to see the whole world. And like a lot of players that are playing today, in fact, have probably not even seen 100% of the world. Either it's been blocked off because the population was too low, or they just haven't visited it themselves. And I think that we just need to keep remembering that like we want everybody to experience everything once in a while. So that's the whole world in this coming update.
But basically. But another thing is that I'm one of those players who've been around since the pre-World Conquest era of the game. I've been playing since I forgot what before World Conquest when we had the smaller map. Not 100% sure when I got in, but it was a long time ago, basically. But another thing I want to mention is that one thing with Abandoned War currently is that it's not been changed for, I think, since when it was originally introduced into the game, if I was correct.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I think the only major changes that has ever happened to the region around it is the base massive city update that changed every combat area, which probably changed the city up mainly with buildings, and some roads will probably switch around. And update 26, which mainly just changed the map around it. But yeah, I'm
Yes,
kind
Fox,
of
did you have anything else for us here?
Real quick, remember guys, we need to make Abandoned Ward great again.
Because Spot's been on multiple times, even beyond Zero Dark, and he's just. I'm saying you got to write it down. You got to put it on the subreddit and put all your arguments there. No one's gonna piece together various recordings from over the months of the show.
I know, but that's where Brave New War came in basically for me, like actual like establishment of the project. But our current mapper is out, so I might retake up the mapping duty.
Okay. All right. Well, Spots, thank you so much for stopping by.
Actually, real quick, I have a suggestion for the game. If we're fighting over Abandoned War, it might be interesting if we fight over an old Capitol building, like a little like smothered out Capitol building somewhere in the city, basically. Because it was in the.
Well, that's a whole other mechanic, and I think a good starting point for that is there was a post on Reddit where someone made a mock-up of a giant map. It was kind of like the size of, I want to say, like 3 regions on a single map, and it was just this massive city that I think, again, I don't know why I keep going to Matt. I think it's because he just posts so much on lore, he winds up blabbing more than people. Not leaking anything, but just more so just like revealing the process. And that he said that, I think I specifically remember him saying, you think you want large cities with, 4 stories tall, but you don't. And I hate to quote him without him being here to defend himself, but things are scaled down for a reason. He talks about scale a lot and how you just kind of leave it up to imagination in terms of the realism of Spots. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Quick, I got one more thing to say.
All right, one more piece. I'll give you a couple minutes here. One more piece.
Basically, I discovered this really a thing that I discovered from another player in Abandoned War that I think the devs need to fix is that you can hop onto a fence, then hop onto a bombed out building right next to the town hall, if you know what building I'm talking about. And then you can hop onto the wall of the building, and then the building right next door, you can get on the roof of it and snipe down from it.
Is that already a thing?
Yeah, that's the thing with the factories, but it's the building. I think it's like a little bit west of the town hall. That it's like the 2 garrison houses there. It takes a little bit parkour, but that spot really needs to be patched out. It gives me a lot of fun, but it's still somewhat broken.
Well, that's a thought. All right, Spots, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Yep. Oh, RBG Man has joined the conversation.
All right. Well, RBG, though he's not our next caller. Our next caller is actually Terrento, but RBGB Man is also joining us as well, member of the PressCorps. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. If you could turn up your, I don't know if it's my personal volume, I think you're coming in a little quiet.
No, that's what I was trying to fix.
Gotcha.
Got thrown into the office by one of your attendants.
Well, there you go. But, Terrento, thank you so much for, again, calling back in. I think, again, one of our most consistent callers here. Terrento, how are you?
Yes. Yes, I guess you could say that I'm a regular here. But yes, I'm pretty good. Thank you for asking, Jeffrey.
No problem. Did you have a question for us, or a comment, or concern about the 44th conflict, or the upcoming 45th?
I would like to talk about the trenches a little bit more in depth.
Sure.
First things first. I like the trenches. When I first saw that one of the dev blocks a long time ago, when you said that the engine that Foxhole was using couldn't support trenches. I was very sad and also very worried because trenches are like one of the most defining things in war. But when the devs suddenly came up with a solution, it wasn't one of the best news that I ever gotten. And I'm actually excited to play this war more than anything else. But one of my main concerns is that people right now are abusing how the trenches work. Like for example, partisans. Do you like partisans, Jeffrey? I don't think anyone likes partisans.
Well, hold on. Are you saying that like mechanic wise, or just in general, just from the perspective of someone who needs supplies?
Mechanical wise, because you see trenches. They're basically a worse sandbag wall for the trucks. It just makes logistics so much hard, and the decay for even the level ones is just so long. I was just concerned if that was ever going to be changed.
Yeah, we've got a solution in the works for that.
Oh, that's nice. I was also gonna mention that you guys not many time ago say that a heavy logistic logistic vehicle on land is coming 2020, and I thought like maybe trenches will be like an already heavy nerf for this vehicle. Because one of the main ways to stop this vehicle is just build trenches everywhere, and I think this is going to be the meta. Like I don't see this because trenches are new and people are going to use it a lot. The way I see, at least mechanical wise, people are gonna use trenches a lot. So much that I'm also very curious to see what is going to happen to normal defenses like gun nests, pillboxes, and other stuff like that. And I was wondering how affected will the land battle be, especially for vehicles, not only this logistic one, but also tanks, half-tracks, armored cars, etc.
Yeah, well, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. That's part of the fun. I think we know we've stumbled on something good when, like, as a design team, we come up with this idea for trenches, and then we come up with the actual spec for it, and then we go, well, how players are going to use this? And we don't know the answer. And I think that's the most exciting thing for us, is because we want it to be as much of a sandbox as we possibly can. So we want to just give you tools and then watch what you guys do with those tools. And so hopefully we'll see some major meta shifts. But honestly, your guess is as good as mine as what the next meta is going to be.
I was actually gonna say that because one of the main things that differentiate Foxhole from other war games is that it has sandbox as one of their core mechanics, but like so the updates that you were adding so far, of course they were small, so there was we couldn't expect much, but they didn't focus much on the sandbox, and it didn't give players like enough liberty to do their own thing. I think like the last update that it added a bit of sandbox was the rockets, because you could affect the landscape of the war permanently, at least for the war that is. So like I think you guys at least for now shifting your direction for more player driven structures and more again liberty with all these trench complexes, bunkers. You could make however you feel like it. You're not limited to, let's say, Callahan's I think it was Callahan's Passage. You know that the one that already has like permanent trenches, and you guys could see it, like people were already making kind of trenches with the sandbag walls. Another thing that I would like to add. Sorry if I'm talking too much, but it's like all these things that you guys were adding, like tripods, 3 different types of machine guns, curved sandbags that were kind of a meme at this point, trenches, everything. Like the field hospital, it just makes the front line looks an actual front line. You could walk in there and feel you're in an actual war, and to realize that almost everything in there was made by players. It just makes the game more fun in general, at least in my perspective.
Well, it's really good to hear.
But that's all I had to say. To be honest, I'm really excited for the trench update. I'm really excited for what you guys are preparing for us next, because at this point I can expect everything. I don't know if you know this, Crazy, but in Foxhole there was kind of the inside joke that you never believe what a dev says is not gonna happen. Because I'm not a totally original since the battle prototype, but people say like the dev say that they were never going to add tanks, and tanks were added. You guys say that trenches were not possible, then trenches were added. Dude, I'm waiting for planes now. When the planes are going to happen?
Honestly, a big part of that is so much. It's like Mark is like constantly being surprised by the team. Like, it's like, well, we want to add trenches, so we actually looked up a couple of references for like above ground trenches just to see if like how it would look if we could just stick it on top of the landscape, if that would be cool. And then one of our team members was like, "And you know what? I think we could just put this in the ground," and then just went nuts on it for like 6 months. And it was like, holy shit! So even Mark and most of the team, we're just constantly floored by what the team is able to produce.
For reference, oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's pretty cool. I took a little break and to come back and see kind of the evolution of game from even where it was a year ago. So many core mechanics I think have changed and made things feel more organic on the line. I don't know if you played the dev branch or the live branch here, Terr, but just seeing kind of the chaos of the trenches and just kind of like that reminiscence, and almost as if people had just abandoned those lines, right? And I think it adds a new dynamic and feel to it. It doesn't feel like you're just fighting over open ground. It feels like you really have secured the enemy position, that you have decimated everything along your pathway.
Yes, I can agree with that, and also because like people are just excited. Okay, people are just building trenches everywhere. People want to make their own bases. It's gonna be a chaos. It's gonna be a mess. That's for sure. But I'm just hopeful that in these next wars, and when people get used to them, we can start to see like the actual results, like these big webs of trenches carefully designed to be as effective as they possibly can. And I don't know if this was an oversight or it was an intended feature, KFC, but with these changes that you guys made with the fucking cement, the trenches, the storm cannons, the big ass boy, the big boy, né? It just seemed like you guys are shifting into a longer war, but it's a progressively winning war. So it's like it's harder to come back. A team just slowly pushes and wins. Since that, at least what it suggests with these new features.
Yeah, good. Well, I mean, do you like that, or do you dislike?
It depends. It depends how much of a snowball that is. If it's just like a 100% way of knowing that you're not gonna come back, it's not as reassuring. But if it's just like something that it encourages the losing team to actually get it back together and plan carefully to hold the enemy advances and actually start pushing back, it makes it kind of exciting. But then again, we have the big boy cannon there to covering half the map to make sure that the comeback is not that easy. Fucking big boy cannon. Or
you could open up a whole can of worms in terms of this discussion on comebacks. Period. I know Spots in the last call. He said that by the time you're defending the blemish, which is in the heartlands, and again we're assuming a traditional Kali's in the south, Wardens in the north map layout. By the time you're fighting in the blemish, you've already lost the war. That I'm actually wish I remember that quote earlier while he was there, because that in terms of comebacks. That's so difficult, but because you're wrestling with two things when it comes to comebacks, because one, you want to make sure that you're not trampling on the hard work of the work it took for the attacking side to get there, and not just handing out a freebie to the people that need the comeback, and two, how much intervention do you actually place in terms of mechanics, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I could see it going both ways. Having this storm cannon in there might prevent the comebacks, because it makes it difficult for a team who's on the back foot to turn it around and take back over the ground that the enemy had already secured with these storms. But on the reverse side of this, and this is what I'm personally hoping for, is that we've noticed that in most wars, by the end of the game, it's almost always clear who's going to win, right? Like, it's like a complete wash, and these Wardens or Colonials are just blowing through regions now, and it's like they're outnumbering them 2-1. But what we're really hoping these storm cannons will bring is that it'll just give players an objective that's not, I need to win this war. That I want to see a player who is on the losing side, and the enemy is coming, and they're outnumbering you 2-1. And I want this player to think to themselves, you know what? I don't care if we lose, but I'm going to build this storm cannon because I really want to fire it, and I really want to shoot and play with it. And in that way, I'm hoping that what we'll see is just a lot more players just sticking around to see their creations, their bases that they've spent days or weeks building, come under attack. You know, it gives them something else to look forward to. And in that way, I'm actually hoping it will help mitigate the imbalance a little.
You know, just on top of that, I think it's so difficult to, oh, not difficult, but I will say that I think something that everyone keeps forgetting, not everyone, but the greater Foxhole community keeps forgetting, is that all these new mechanics that keep getting introduced, greater strategic long-term balance is not even a thing we're considering, maybe? I don't know, because it's not supposed to flow so perfectly right now. That's the beauty of early access. So there's just so many moving components. It's like I think I made this metaphor before, where Foxhole is just this extremely long math equation where if you change one number or change one sign, like a plus or a minus or a division symbol or whatever, square root or whatever, just one tiny thing like that could completely change the end result of the equation. And I don't know, we're still coming up with new symbols and new functions of math, but in terms of just making sure everything is just fun overall, it's so difficult. I think that metaphor fell apart halfway through. But
but I think that's really, really poignant, because like that's part of the fun. That like the journey there is part of the fun too. Is that when we change something around we go, all right, we're gonna add this tool in. Like we're just gonna add like the storm cannon in. Cool, drop it in, and then all the players take a look at it and go, oh my god, but I can use it this way and I can use it that way. And it's like you said, that part of that equation. Like, we just changed something, and it changes all of the equations, and suddenly there's this limitless possibility of things that we, the developers, haven't thought of, and that leads to some really cool and exciting stories. Sometimes it leads to some really broken stuff, but, like, that's part of the fun of developing this game with the community, is that you guys, like, ultimately are mapping the flow of this game just by the things that you do. Like, in the dev branch, how a bunch of you guys were building player-built roads using the trench bridge system. Like, I'm unfortunately, we had to cut that because it was just a little bit, that was really broken. But I mean, imagine like that had made it into the game. Like, you guys are effectively controlling the development of this game just by the things that you do.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that, like, really kind of, you know, like I said, going back to a year ago, right? You know, talking about trenches and seeing all that stuff, you know, it was like, no, we won't get that. The best thing we're going to get is the, you know, double sandbag wall. We'll deal with that, you know. And even that changed the game dynamically, oddly enough. That whole update, the town update. I remember that was World Conquest 19, I think, right? It was when the town update launched. And
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's almost a year ago, and to see that like swell, like the population, right? You know, to see that whole thing play out the way it did, really changed the whole, meta of the community. Is like, okay, well, you know, and I kind of think that's how trenches are going to kind of be, right? Like, it's really going to, like, the first few weeks are going to really be just a giant slogfest, right? You know, it's going to be pushing trench after trench, getting slowed down. It's like the concept of just being able to just punch through and, endlessly keep on going forward. It's no longer a thing anymore. You're going to be met with some sort of trench line, which I think, first off, dynamically changes it, but it's also easier to really lay out where they are.
It's like a science. It's like a science experiment. Honestly, I just treat every war like a science experiment, and every little update is just a new variable, a new factor, and just, my goodness, the things that result from the slightest change. You think sometimes. Terrento, thank you so. Did you have anything else for us? Thank you so much for calling in.
Oh yeah. I just had one more thing to say before I go, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I just would like to say something that Spots said that I don't quite agree. Is that when he said like when colonials were southwest and wardens were colonials were northwest and wardens southeast.
Right.
They said that colonials won because the whole warden bias map and all that jazz. But I would like to add that it was probably not the case. I mean, it could have been, but it could also have been because like mainly just the players weren't used to the map, or maybe because the burden. You guys remember, right? Before this war, wardens won like what 5 wars in a row. So it is to be expected that the players were kind of bored or burdened with all that action. So before we jump into any conclusions, if it's possible, we could like do other sessions of this layout and then see what is the result. If there is really a warden bias map, or it's just other variables in this question. But man, this is just a big joke. I remember when like fucking colonial bias existed.
I remember in the aftermath of Jade Cove, and the wardens were shooting each other, and the colonials were just going up, just trouncing every region in the north. It's like, the wardens will never recover from this. I'm like, now we're in the opposite. So it doesn't matter. Not doesn't matter, but who knows, right? The wind blows either way.
I always love kind of like my biggest thing, and it's a very unpopular opinion amongst.
Keep going, Terrento. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hands down, like the idea of kind of like this bias, it kind of makes me upset because it's just like it really doesn't exist in the world the way people think it does. The only bias is morale bias. Like if you win a good battle, right? Like if you're getting your butt kicked day in and day out, week in week out, like of course you're gonna like probably turn off the game for a week or two. Kick back and relax, and that has an effect, especially when people really like when a faction's losing heavily like that. They're going to sit back and probably, people are going to not, they'll take a break, and that impacts the entire war, and you see that. I think some of the biggest comebacks have been because those people that went on break came back and said, okay, well, what can we do to try to win this, turn this around, And it really comes down to the player morale, and I think that's often negated in a lot of situations. It's the one resource that you can't build or control. And I think it's often mitigated when when discussions of biases, quote unquote, are mentioned.
Yeah, we could go into that for quite a while. Anyway, Foxy, thank you so much for calling in. Welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. What'd you have for us here? Any questions, comments, or concerns for the past 44th or the upcoming 45th war here?
Yeah, first I'd like to say, and I think it's important because it's probably not said enough, but I've not been playing Foxhole a massive amount of time, but I
only
really
500 hours.
Yeah, not even that much yet. But I just kind of to Crazy. Sorry, is it Max or Crazy? I forget.
Whatever's easier for you.
Just really want to say, as like a random community member, you guys are doing a really great job, and I think it's a superb game. It's so unique. It's so fun, and I know that I've played a lot of games, more than I would care to admit, because it would be really scary to figure out the amount of hours I've put into games. But kind of going like 3-4 years back before the kind of world of Discord, when it was really hard to, or even unthinkable, to actually talk to a game developer about the game that you're playing. I think you guys have embraced it really well, and it's just it's a pleasure to see kind of the development process of this game, and just from that point of view, I'd like to say really well done, because I think you guys are doing a great job.
Well, thanks, man.
That's cool. Just a few questions / comments. One thing I've noticed, and a kind of even you touched on the kind of the monuments on the home islands, kind of overspilling and stuff like that, and I was kind of wondering around the colonial ones the other day, and it does seem that wardens win a lot more wars in succession than colonials do. And I think it's pretty well known that there is a somewhat of a population imbalance with wardens, in that they have the really large organised clans, and they tend to pool their operations at one time in the week, kind of like on a weekend, like a Saturday. So what you tend to see is that obviously all the wardens will come on together on a Saturday, and they'll steamroll the map when maybe the colonials are not so active, and that generally seems to be the way that the wars are being decided. And I just kind of wondered what your thoughts or perceptions or comments were on generally player numbers per faction, and how you would, if it is at all possible, to balance that out per war.
Oh man, that is such a loaded question. Yeah. we have been trying to help fix this player imbalance issue, and there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. But when we can dissect the reasons for why we think this might be happening, whether the reason is population, or whether it's some other factor that's taking place that's causing the wardens to win more. There's so many facets to that argument, but bottom line is we need to tackle it directly. And a lot of people are not a fan of this, but the efficiency system is in no small part a big part of that. It's actually a violation of our game design philosophy, which is that we don't want anything magical in Foxhole. We don't like the idea of there just being some overarching mechanic that's controlling everything. But when it came to player population, we decided, all right, like we've danced around the bush enough for like the last year and a half trying to tackle this, and finally we just said, you know what, screw it. We're just going to try to fix this in any way we possibly can. And the efficiency system was exactly for that. It's like you said, when the wardens come on the Saturday and they start pushing, like there's no limit to what they can take, at least before the efficiency system. It was like they just log on and they could just sweep 3 or 4 regions, and that was it. It was like the morale of the colonials was just completely wiped out. And the efficiency system, I know a lot of people are going to hate this, but that's why it's there, is to say, all right, you guys have gone far enough. It's time to take a break. And I know we're going to get so much flack for that, but that's why it's there. And it's not perfect.
2 years ago, I would not have imagined that. That being a decision, but here we are, and yeah, it's so tricky.
Yeah, we tried, before this one, we tried some really aggressive, bunker stuff. Like, the bunkers got improved. The tunnel networks were part of that. And remember tunnel networks? That was 8 months ago. Mm-hmm. Again, it was all there to help address this singular issue of, well, if I'm outnumbered, how do I still hold my ground? And nothing worked. It's like 8 months later, we were still faced with the same complaint, blasting all over the forums, all over the Discord. Population's out of control, and so this was the only thing left for us to try. And like I said, it's not perfect, but we're gonna keep pushing in this direction just to try to solve it. And hopefully, with you guys' feedback, we'll be able to make it a little less painful.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I totally get it, and I totally get that. It's a really fine balance between kind of trying to craft the player experience and not negatively influence it, for example. And I see kind of how kind of carefully you'd have to tread around this sort of thing, because actually it would be punishing success sort of thing to where you have really organized warden clans that put so much time into their logistics and so much organization, and and they deserve to take the territory that they do, because if you've ever been on the receiving end of a warden sort of front line, it's not a nice place to be, because they do really dominate. But why would you ever want to punish that? Because and for a game that's in early access and for all intents and purposes is very, very niche, I could see how the population overall would really suffer if you start kind of using more stick than carrot. Bad analogy, sorry. To kind of like try and control how successful one side is. So, but yeah, I was really interested to see your thoughts on that. And
You know what's really great is I actually really love being on the opposite end of it. I played against the Warden weekend, I think 2 weekends ago, when the Wardens were pushing into Umbral Wildwood, and it was so, like, I like, hands down, the amount of coordination that goes into these Saturday ops is amazing, and it's so, like, even though we're just getting thrashed by it, it was just absolutely the coolest thing, just watching them, like, flare the front line, and then shell it, and then they bring up some tanks, and it was this really cool feeling of, like, I was just playing with like 2 or 3 friends, but we were just running through the woods trying to get these little positions and trying to like outsmart the enemy, but we couldn't, because there were 50 to 60 coordinated players all on Discord working together against 3 little RPG boys in a bush somewhere. Like, there was nothing we could do. And that's honestly, that's what I'd like to see Foxhole be more like, is that I want teamwork and coordination to trump everything, even numbers. I want a well-coordinated force to just absolutely dominate, and I think that's what the Wardens have on Saturday, and I really want to see the Colonials do something similar.
Yeah, totally agreed. So I have a few, I guess, things on a wish list, which maybe you might gain traction.
If it's a list, you might be best writing them down. Putting it on the Reddit.
Like,
I always say put it on the Reddit, because they'll get forgotten in the Discord most likely, unless it's like in a specific
definitely.
bugs channel. But I always say put it on Reddit. You'll probably get downvoted to hell, and 5 people will make a meme, and then it'll be forgotten. But at least it'll be there. But go ahead.
Totally, and that is something I can put on Reddit afterwards as well. So actually, one comment. When I originally got Foxhole, I joined, and it was so confusing, and I didn't have the first clue about what I was doing, so I kind of went away and didn't come back for a while. And then I think I came back on because I think maybe a friend picked it up on sale, and they said, "Have you ever played this? And let's get into it." I was like, "Yeah, I've got it in my games list actually." And I can't remember who it was, but I'd love to be able to remember. I joined the Colonial home region, and there was a clan, and they were running training drills, and it was absolutely superb. And they kind of took me and 8 other people, and they went around the training course, and they said, "This is how to play the game." And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have played past that, because it can be a pretty confusing game to sort of start. So just kind of a comment around now that the new starting regions kind of plonks people in 3 or 4 different spawn points. Has there been any thought put to kind of that sort of thing around coordinated training for people?
Have you heard of the Help Clan, led by Lox?
It might have been those guys that actually ran the training, to be honest.
Are you? I'm sorry, I may have missed. Are you talking about like developer sanction, or like in-game training, or are you talking about just third-party, like just people?
Yeah, I mean, like in-game training, kind of. Is there a consideration?
Oh, like a mentor system or something?
Yeah, that's sort of like a buddy system. So when it goes on Steam
I think
sale
the squads
next,
kind of serve that, right? Or is there like an auto? Is there an auto join in the squads, or no?
We can make them public, or you can make them public. So yeah, kind of.
Sure.
Yeah, it just obviously. So I've played various indie games over the years, and the real suffering point of these games is player retention. So I'd be interested to know if there's any stats on Foxhole in terms of player retention for new players, like and particularly fall off versus player time, kind of how far in do they get before they don't come back, and that would be a really good thing to know, and see if the community could build something around grabbing these players that come in and maybe don't have friends to play with, but would definitely stick it out and be really good if they could fall in with like the right clan, for example. So that's more of a comment than a question, I suppose. One thing I really want to know is there any plans to put in some sort of system where I could drop a point on a map and it would give me some sort of indicator on my UI about where to go? I guess we're talking World War sat-nav sort of thing, because if you're trying to run Logi, like a truck full of really kind of stuff that's taking you hours and hours to put together, and there's a few partisans around, I'd love to be able to like plot a route in advance on my map and kind of see the waypoint, like a progressive waypoint system, so I don't have to keep switching to my map and stopping my truck for a few seconds. Has there been any thought put to that, or any plans around that?
Yes, a lot of thought was put into that, and there was a big internal and external debate about it. Even as far as the mini map you get when you get into a vehicle on the bottom right. Even that was contentious to put in, and the reason why is because when you take a step back as like a game designer and you're looking at it like from the perspective of like what is the user experience. Try to imagine like playing GTA, like GTA 5. How much of the city have you actually seen? Versus how much of the time are you just sitting there staring at your bottom right corner of the map, wondering where your next left turn is? And that was something that we really wanted to put on. Like we thought a lot about. Like, do we really want players like basically setting waypoints and then ignoring like the things that are around them? And like I don't know. It's tough to say. And to be clear, like I think the logistics, we still need to work on logistics a lot more, especially with the driving mechanics. A lot of people complain that driving is extremely boring, so maybe there's something there. But for the time being, I think we've pushed as far as we want to with that mini map and the navigation.
Yep, fair enough, makes sense. So yeah, a few more quick things, and appreciate time. I'd really
for a few more minutes here, yeah.
Cool. I'd really like to be able to pull out of a refinery with something different than a truck. So its specific example is if I'm doing like solo logistics and I've managed to get myself like a crane and a flatbed and a harvester, and I'm going to a scrap field and I fill up my container and I load it onto the flatbed and then I take it to the refinery. I have to unload it, dump all that stuff into a queue, and then if obviously logistics is about kind of supplying your team, but if in that instance I want it all in my private queue because I'm working with 6-7 other people and we want to make something very specific for an operation, what happens a lot of the time, obviously in busy backline logistics regions, is as soon as you submit that stuff into the refinery, there'll be like 3 people there with trucks and it all goes before you can even get to actually put it into your queue to make BMATs and things like that, and that's obviously because you then need to get out of your flatbed and load the container on foot, and then you need to go and find a truck to kind of bring it back and load the refinery that way. And obviously you can lock the truck and hide it, but you're going to be longer than 5 minutes filling up a shipping container, at which point someone's come along and sort of taken that truck, and you can't squad lock it unless you've got the amount of the right people in the region to squad lock it. So it would be nice to be able to just take one element out of that logistics train for solo players, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh my God. I actually have a card already open for that exact issue. That I put the scrap shipping container down in front of the refinery, and then I push the submit button, and then before I can even get to it, oh my God, it's so.
And it's gone. It's like, yeah, by being.
How I've started to look at it recently, but not like this is still really, really high level stuff, but like how I start to see it now is like there's really a separation of roles. That's what I'm seeing, is in that there's like conceptually there's multiple roles in Foxhole. There's the guy, the scrapper, the guy who's actually just mining the resources, putting it into the shipping container, and then there's the logistics player who is picking them up, delivering them to the storage or to the factory, and then delivering them to the front line. And we know that these are different roles based by like you said. There's this weird disconnect where suddenly you have to switch your vehicle. You have to switch from your flatbed truck to a crane to a truck, and then it's like submit and pull, and then you're going to different factories, and it's almost like you have to leave your tools behind as a scrapper to become a logistics player.
Yeah.
And I think that's really that's the bottom line where I think most of the complaints come from, is that you're switching, you're almost expected to do multiple roles. You're not expected to be able to just do it all yourself. And that's kind of by design, because we wanted players to work together as a team, but it's not satisfying. Like, if you're working as a team, you should feel like, yeah, I'm working like a team, and we're getting so much efficiency done. But in the current game, it's almost like you want to not work as a team, because there's not really a lot of benefit to doing so, except that if you don't, it's frustrating. And we want to turn that around somehow. And the most recent exploration of this was that concrete mixer. I was talking to the guys on FOD about this. It's really very much an experiment in that, here we've actually cut out that logistics part of being an engineer. And so in order to build a concrete bunker now, you go and you mine your components, and then you deliver it to the refinery or to the concrete mixer, and then you can immediately start building right there on the spot, and that's it. You don't need to switch roles in order to do it. You are an engineer doing the entire flow from mining to producing. It's all you, one person. And I think that's something that we're going to look more into when we look back at logistics, is how do we separate these roles, and then once we have them completely separated, how do we make them more satisfying to try to join them? It should be satisfying as a Logi player to do it by yourself, but doubly so if you manage to convince some engineers to give you a hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you agree on that. So I appreciate I've been here really long, so just throw some last few things at you, and I'll get out your way. I'd really like to be able to land ship tanks to save that petrol, rather than just ship them by sea, sort of thing. Something to consider, because obviously the river doesn't go everywhere, and petrol's really hard to make. And one complaint that I actually got from a friend, which is kind of the reason that he doesn't like to play Foxhole, and maybe he's just lazy, is that he doesn't like that every time he spawns, he has to go to a stockpile and manually pull out weapons. And he appreciates that the time is there for a reason, but I think his sort of suggestion was, okay, I want to choose a kit that I want to pull if available, and I just want to press a button. And then, if I want to set a button that pulls those sort of guns out automatically for me, so I want to pull a med kit and a trauma kit and a revolver with 3 clips sort of thing, and I press the F1 button to do it, and if it's available it will make it, and if not it will tell me that it's not, and it will make you things that are available. I think that would be a really good quality of life improvement for people, and it would save a lot of time, and you don't have to actually take the time away. It will still take them exactly the amount of time that it would if they clicked it manually, but it just removes a kind of a bit of that having to click through every sort of thing.
My counter to that is that something about me likes thinking about everything I pull out every time, as opposed to dying, clicking on the rifleman class that I've created, and it gives me rifle, 2 magazines, grenade, bandage, and then I don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. Again, unpopular opinion, but something about going through my kit every time and going, yeah, you know what? I'll only bring 1 magazine because it's that crazy right now, and I'm not gonna throw a frag on the ground because I'm probably gonna get shot before I get out there. Probably will take that bandage. Just something about that I enjoy. It's like building up excitement for the next life. I don't know, something to consider. I know it's just more clicking. So I know there's a lot of people who distill so many ideas. And I'm not accusing you of this, but so many people who distill things down to, yeah, but can we just remove as many clicks as possible? Or, which, I mean, hey, that's not a bad idea. But, kind of like going back to how, yeah, even though we're losing, let's fight for this storm cannon. Other people will look at that and just go, yeah, but you're losing. You're about to lose. What's the point if you can't win? And then, it's just not in their mode of thinking.
Yeah,
And
no, I understand. Yeah, I do understand that it's kind of, fundamentally, it's kind of it's the way the game is. You know, it's a pretty core design principle, and that actually kind of people that don't want to put that work in are probably not suited to the game in the first place. So yeah, I do understand that. It was just a kind of suggestion, really.
And you know what? In the chat, and I actually am looking at the chat. I haven't been interacting because I think it's hilarious when people get in fights on in smaller chats. But anyway, I think
I've been trying to help mitigate it, but it's failed
good.
miserably.
It's great.
Yeah, I see what people are saying around.
Clue says, and he's not the first person to say this, let me have an assembly queue. Let me click everything all at once instead of evenly spaced clicks. Let me do all the labor of item selection at once and relax for the next minute. Lek says, let us cancel the assembly process as well, because that's happened to me, where I accidentally click on a satchel instead of something else and go, well, here I am for the next 23 seconds, and this is going to kill me. But yeah, I think that's been suggested somewhere before, where you're still thinking about it, but you still have to click every single thing, one at a time. But now you can queue it up yourself. I don't know. Maybe that's a anti-griefing measure. Prevent someone from lining up, 100 magazines at once, and then they can just sit there and grief. Maybe limit that queue to 5 or 6 items. I don't know. It's a thought. So a lot of things. KFC, any words on this? Because I know that these questions are more directed towards KFC.
I think you guys pretty much answered it, but I think you guys, and I think you guys know the reason why these assembly times exist in the first place is to prevent griefing. Obviously this is like a no-brainer. Like, obviously we need to make this less painful. So yeah, I mean, expect something in the future, but I have no idea when.
See, I never understood it, because I just go out with a rifle, a bayonet, and a magazine, and then I go pick up all my stuff from my comrades and wardens. I don't know.
Get what you need from the dead.
No, exactly. And honestly,
dead or your stockpile.
They are.
You actually pick up a rifle? You actually pull out a rifle from the stockpile?
Yeah.
I'm doing a Civil War style, where I won't even, there's no rifle, there's no magazines left. I'll just pick up rifles. I'll have 5 rifles in my backpack, each one with varying levels of rounds still left in the chamber, and I'll just cycle through all of them and then empty them out and then put the empty rifles back. It's just maximum recycling.
We should go defensive Stalingrad. One person has the rifle, one person has the ammo.
Might get there. Hey, Foxy, thank you so much for calling in. Please write these down somewhere, put them in a document so at least you remember them, and then check back on them to see if these things have been fixed or addressed. Maybe they won't be for the next 6 months, who knows. And then put them on Reddit, where you'll get bombarded with just critiques all around, but at least it'll be there for it to circulate through the community's general mind. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Thanks very much, and I definitely will do.
Yeah, see you, man.
So one thing that he was talking about that I'd like to tack on real quick, the logistics side of it, and I know this is probably not something that was inherently thought of, but the battlefield logistics system has pretty much got revamped, because now you're giving a purpose.
How's it going, guys?
To retrieving bodies as well as equipment. You're basically saying hey, let's get the guns back, and then let's grab this guy back, with the critically wounded soldiers, and bring him back to the base. And it's kind of it encourages that battlefield requisition, battlefield logistics, kind of a new level where, because it's new, people will interact with it more. And it's kind of cool to see that, especially, I know everybody's well, there's not enough casualties. And I'm well, it's going to happen. Once the large war starts, we'll start to notice a lot of the elements of that. But it's going to be cool to see how that all plays out. I just run around. I like to collect stuff off of our people and try to bring it back. So because that's wasted equipment. So, and I think
Battlefield Scavenger is 100% a legitimate role that just developed over time, and that's probably one of the most important, especially when logistics isn't doing their job. They're just taking it too easy. You're just slacking off. Battlefield Scavengers, they pick up the slack where logistics leave behind. Got to get those logistics people.
And now I can be a medic, a battlefield scavenger, and a body snatcher, all in one role.
That's true. Hey, sir, joining us here for, I think, is the first time ever, or at least the first time in a long time, is what's your official title? head moderator of the Foxhole official Discord?
Well, no, not something so grandiose. Just the Discord admin. I'm just the guy.
Discord admin. That's a much better title.
Yeah, I just babysit the the stuff that no one else wants to do or is insane enough to do.
And to everyone listening at home, this is what Sir sounds like.
Yeah. Hello.
I think there were
Sir is underselling himself a fair bit here. Is that he's basically he manages a lot of the bots. I believe you also code some of them, including the mod mail bot, and he does a lot of the work for he does all of the work for the Discord. To be totally honest, there was a time when I tried to do stuff, and then all it did was make him angry. So now it's just all him.
And that's an understatement. It really does make me angry.
Anger seems to be your thing.
Really
I don't know why. You're only the moderator. You're only the admin of a Discord that's got, what, 50,000 people? 60,000 people?
63 plus?
Yep.
What?
Stranger says he's the final boss of tech support. It's a good title.
Is he?
Yeah.
Again, I want to restate this. It's been mentioned before that the Foxhole Discord is one of the largest Discords in Discord history. I think top 20?
I would say that's a lot less of a thing now.
Now, okay.
Yeah. So for instance, there was a time where we outnumbered like the Minecraft server, right?
What?
The top grossing game in the past 25 years by like 4 to 1. But now they outnumber us by like, I think I last looked almost 500,000 people.
It's
so
like a resurgence of Minecraft, man.
It really is, yeah. But we do have the honor back 2017 year in review, end of 2017, we were the top, I think second or third place of all of Discord,
Wow.
which really lends itself because Foxhole was like the core, earliest adapter of Discord back when it was new. So they had the upper hand there. There's a lot of documentation and blog posts that feature Foxhole on Discord itself, on their website, stuff like rich presence and so on. Foxhole was there first, so it's pretty cool journey.
And under your partial, with KFC and others, under your guidance, it's really become its own. So, yeah, good work on making sure the Foxhole Discord makes it this far and doesn't go out in holy flames. So, so we're going to open up this conversation. First question: why do you hate the community so much?
Okay. That's a loaded question, which I could probably ramble for about 3 hours. So.
No, right? What did you have for us here, really?
Yeah, sure. No. So now here's the fun part about the whole dynamic between Max and myself here, is that he and I don't agree on, I would say, 80% of stuff. Would that sound right?
Are we talking game design?
Well, game design is probably much higher. I think just in general, like I think unless it's sending people to their death in Company of Heroes, we don't agree on a lot of things. We understand each other and we understand priorities and we understand we understand the thought process behind everything that each of us do. For the most part, we don't read each other's minds, but it also allows us to disagree a lot. And game design is, of course, one of those touchy things for me. Having been here for a good while, it's interesting for me to see the change so much. Having come into it, it really was the right time for me to get into it. Even just personally in my personal life, it was like the right time to stumble across Foxhole. But at the same time, there's a lot where it's like the things that draw me to Foxhole are just not there, or are unfortunately overshadowed. Things like logistics. I say logistics is like my only thing, and that's because it was the number one thing and I lump building into that, but I lump logistics. It was my number one thing, and I think there's a huge disconnect. And I'm really just a rambling old man when it comes to this stuff, but there's a huge disconnect about everything else in the game, and then there's logistics. Nothing really seems to take logistics into account at all. Except when you get a feature update. Like, you get a feature update, it's like, oh, hey, cool, cranes, nice. Didn't solve anything. And I'm just wondering, and I could be having this discussion like one-on-one at all times, but I think there's value in the discussion. Like, when are we going to get something? Something to make things fit back together the way they did, a year and a half ago.
How would you like to see logistics be?
Well, so to me, logistics. I always like to bring up the specific pieces of it. Like, I'm one of those weirdos that really enjoyed sitting back in the scrap field holding left click for all eternity, because it was an incredibly relaxing experience. But that's really not the point. For me, logistics was about taking a bunch of people, walking into a situation, analyzing it, and saying, how do we make this work? What do we need? And then being able to create a system on the spot to fill all the needs, or at least everyone that we could. And the most important aspect to that was that everything felt fluid. No start, no stop. It was all fluid. I use the example of a cog in the machine. You can't just keep replacing a gear every single time. You can't change gears all the time. It has to keep going. And to me, that's the most important part. I think early access, era, mid 2018 was probably the last truly fluid logistics system that the game had. And I think it really creates this weird overshadowing where you can't enjoy other aspects of the game as much. And one thing is either overshadowed by the other. And I think that if it were working perfectly, people who never touch logistics, who complain about logistics for whatever reason, would have less to complain about even. So that's my thoughts. I want something fluid.
So, but I mean, I'm having a hard time understanding what you mean by like fluid.
So by fluid, I mean like, I think the last color, or maybe it was Terrento, or maybe it was Foxy, made the comments that, or maybe it was you. Actually, no, sorry, it was actually you. How everything requires you to change gears. You have to get out of the vehicle, get in the vehicle, do the hokey pokey, and all this stuff. When in all actuality, the OG logistics was based around you having your role, and even though you could take on multiple roles, it was an action that was fluid to jump from the next to the next. You didn't have to sit in the vehicle to do it. You didn't have to go find other vehicles, which is a thing that people are having to do all the time. You pull to a scrap field and there just isn't a crane there, and it could be that crane was desperately needed somewhere, which is fine. But then if you're playing solo, you have to stop, go get this thing. Whereas if you're working with a team, you inevitably have everyone just cooperating, getting things together. And I think, yes, logistics should be able to be done as a solo player, but like someone else said, it should really ultimately be that much better as a team, as a group of people. I built a clan around it for Pete's sake, right? It's just that nothing feels like it comes together without having to start and stop.
Well, on that point, we agree. As part of that whole point about the switching roles being very, like, I think that's definitely something we want to fix. Like, without a doubt, that's one of our biggest gripes with logistics. And we think a lot of the feedback really does boil down to that. Is that, and we hear this a lot, is there are too many steps. And it took us a long time to really understand what people meant by that. Like, there are too many steps to logistics. I mean, obviously there's like the bullet points, but like we actually wrote them out. We wrote them like step for step. What is this? Like, what are people doing in order to get these logistics out? And like that was what stood out to us. Is that there's definitely a period in the chain where the steps get really, really narrow and close together, and it's right around the time when you need to switch into delivering things to the front line, and that's what we want to alleviate. Not so much like the scrapping thing, like you were talking about. Like you like sitting in a scrap node, and actually I do too. I did a couple of like freighter runs. I really enjoy using a freighter to go and do scrap runs, and that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was really cool that I could sweep up entire fields, load them into my freighter, and then deliver them. And then I've got like 300,000 BMAS to deliver. That was cool. What sucked was unloading my freighter. Like parking the freighter, getting the crane, unloading the freighter, getting the flatbed, getting driving it to the refinery, deploying it, and then having it just disappear. That was extremely frustrating.
For a lot of people, just the mere thought of that prevents them from doing logistics.
Exactly. And that's where we want to start fixing it, but not in this update. Obviously, this one was focused more on engineers.
Well, that's the thing is, and I think I said before, I lump engineers and logistics into one general category, and it ultimately breaks down to bitch work. But these types of things rely on a player who's willing to go through these monotonous things, but they have to have their goal. And for me, it wasn't necessarily filling a specific task or a specific goal. It was the whole system was a goal. And I think that's where, once you get a working system, you lose track of time. You will play for many hours. And whereas right now I touch logistics for about 30 minutes and I'm just done. It's just so unsatisfying, unrewarding, and then you try to do something else, and the next best thing was building, and you can't even do that because nothing is worth building. Yeah, it looks cool, but we're having these weird, arbitrary, in between things come up. The waiting for 24 hours. I kid you not. When I threatened you that I will stream watching cement dry for 24 hours, I was not joking.
Isn't that your fault? Isn't that your fault that you're watching cement dry for 24 hours? Like, wouldn't you do something else?
No, absolutely not. Because this should not be a thing. These types of arbitrary things, and I've noticed this. I played another game recently, Arc Age, and it was built for a free-to-play time, but they made it pay-to-play and yada yada yada. But they had an arbitrary mechanic where, in order for you to continue doing actions that were not killing mobs or grinding or doing PvP, and in order to do actions like resource gathering, you had labor, which was artificially granted over time, a fixed amount every hour. And what that really amounts to is you have to log off in order to do the things that you want to do, because you have to accumulate whatever it is and then come back on and do whatever you actually wanted to do or accomplish something else. You can be kind of one track.
If you don't mind, I'm still trying to kind of understand your argument on this, because it's the arbitrary aspect of the concrete drying is what you're saying here.
Yeah, well,
the 24-hour timer.
The 24-hour timer is just something that's arbitrarily thrown in, and it really. First off, it's risky. You build your thing, and you have to wait 24 hours to find out if it's even going to be there.
Well, it's risky if you put it towards the front.
And I think that's the whole point. I think often, and I really have to. I want to, the dev team for this. Like, I could never imagine working on a dev team. You have hundreds of people that you're essentially trying to find like this middle ground balance that you think is going to work for everybody. And you have people that are like on board with this, like I want the guy with the crane who's unloading the truck from the dude that just brought it to the scrap field, or the dudes who's, you have those people, and then you also have people who are just like, I want to be able to do it all on my own. And it's like, where do you find that balance? And I think that's the same issue with this, I guess, with the concrete thing, right? It's like, how do you prevent it from, because obviously enough, right? The goal is not to have these super trenches on the front line, like scattered everywhere, right? Like, you want this trickling effect, right? It's like the Hindenburg Line was not the first line of defense, in the First World War, right? It's that principle of like, that's something that's supposed to be backline, that it could take 24 hours and it'd be comfortable, that it's not really meant to be used until it's a backline war, until they're in the heartlands, or until they're in, Westgate, those kind of things. And so as much as we could say it's arbitrary, I mean, it's kind of like real life, concrete doesn't dry instantly. So, for me, it's like, the logic there doesn't make nearly as much sense. It prevents, because I don't know if you've seen how friggin' powerful those concrete bunkers are. Or concrete structures.
Yeah, if it took 24 hours in real life to make a truck, then yeah, sure. But I think the fact that it is a high ticket item, similar to how, I don't know, producing a rocket booster takes a day. I think, right? I don't know anymore, but I think it's because it's a high ticket item. That's why. I don't know if we're just harping on the specifics and of one example and detracting from the overall argument. But I don't know. It's
So to kind of agree to that point, it's less. To me, it's actually I actually disagree that there's too many steps. I know that's a painful argument for people to hear. I disagree that there's too many steps. It's that the steps cannot be completed in a fluid manner by one or many people.
Or many people. Okay.
Or many. It's
if it was one, that makes sense. But okay.
Yeah, like so in OG logistics, right? Original logistics. It was all about teamwork and everyone's doing their thing. But if I'm producing materials, I did not have to stop, get in my vehicle, deliver them, make the item, do this, do that, yada yada. I could. If I really wanted to get some spawn supplies to the front line, I could stop what I was doing and just go do that. But the beauty of it was in the system. You have someone gathering and you have a driver come up. Hey, there's materials ready for me. And in most cases, many drivers could come up and there's materials waiting for you. That's picked up. It's already going to where it needs to be. Meanwhile, those get accumulated where they need to be, and they get used in producing items in a very fluid manner. And these drivers are bringing them to the front line in almost a constant rotation. Not necessarily, a constant supply of like HEs, that would be absurd. But you might have a constant rotation of like, okay, and we're running low on this, we could at least get by with a fluid system. The one thing that any arbitrary timer creates is a arbitrary stoppage of that, or a forcing you to not do the thing that you're trying to do or want to do or enjoy to do, and just go do something else. But that's like, if I'm really working on something, I'm really grooving on something, I don't want to do that. And it makes the entire system, if it feels dysfunctional for a single solo player, imagine how it can suddenly make a crew of 20 or more. It's dysfunctional for everyone involved. And I guess it's just painful to see more and more get added in, and to me it's a symptom of the long-term development cycle, or the short-term development cycle where everything's iterative and happening every month, is that nothing ever comes together.
I see what you're saying. It's exciting new feature, exciting new toy, exciting new fundamental thing that changes everything, but now we need to piece it. Now it needs to be pieced together. Maybe 6 months need to be taken. I don't know, maybe not. But an update needs to be dedicated to where hey, how do we actually make the endpoint actually satisfying by connecting the pieces, making it more fluid, and just making the experience better, not just through small quality of life changes, but overall big picture. I was on that good train. The transition between the various aspects of all these features and you're making it smoother, making it more fluid. I think zooming out now that I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like this metaphor might be dead on arrival. Didn't Rainbow Six Siege have Operation Health? I don't know if anyone here plays Siege, but I think it was. I don't play it either, so I feel bad bringing this up. But scraps for 3 hours. But I think there's an update called Operation Health where the developer just said, we're just going to take 3 months to just balance all these maps, tweak numbers, no new features, no new operators, no new nothing, just tweak everything to the point where it feels good. And so I don't know, could that be on the docket? Will you survive the next fiscal quarter if you do that? I don't know, KFC. What do you think? Is that a thought?
Sorry, what's the thought?
Take a long break between dev cycles. Damn it.
Oh,
or the dev cycle be but smoothing out and piecing together the disparate features and all these things and making them a smoother experience.
I wish we could. I mean, we've had patches in the past that were primarily just bug fixes and all the little things that like maintenance. We've had I remember one patch where we were just getting it up to Unreal Engine 4.2. It was like the whole update was just like, a lot of back-end stuff happened.
And on a technical level, I recognize that. But now we're talking on a game balance level. Balance there. Game balance and just the overall feeling of playing over a long period of time, right? I don't know. Sir, am I on the right track there?
I would probably say that a single update cycle is not enough.
Oh no.
Or actually, sorry. I will backtrack that a little bit. A single update cycle for something like this massive December update, we're adding fundamental changes to the game engine, amazing things that were technically not supposed to ever happen, like trenches. Which, don't get me wrong, I am excited about these. Don't let my gloomy self, make any thing. It's just that to me it's overshadowed. But I'm still excited about these amazing things. But something of this magnitude, or what happens every December, is this massive content drop. It needs to be coupled with all the other things that matter. Otherwise, it just feels disjointed. This happened to me big time when we got the cranes, the trucks, the everything else. It didn't feel complete, and that was even a logistics update. But to add to that, like now we're having a big content drop, and it just feels disjointed and incomplete, and needs more time to iron out the extra stuff. When you look at many other games, they don't operate. I don't say they, but like a significant number of games don't operate on a monthly iterative development cycle where they're taking a big picture, making a sweeping change, and they are doing it over the course of 2-3 months. Or it's a variable, right? They have to sit there and put their time in for like a major overhaul. Recently, my time sink started to become Legionnaire, and it's funny because it is an incredibly chill experience of what it is, in essence, is solo space logistics, resource gathering, holding left click for all eternity, doing all these things. But they operate on a more long-term development cycle. They'll do these smaller patches, of course, but they'll do like these sweeping boom. Here's this, but usually it's coupled with here's everything else that fits into this picture. If this needed a change in order to make this happen appropriately, then let's go ahead and make sure it happens now instead of waiting until next update or 6 updates from now because something else changed in the priorities.
And I think the fear is that should that not happen, should that needed change not happen, we're just going to keep getting new feature after new feature, always fundamentally altering the how the game is played, but without the needed balance, and it just feels too disjointed. As the months roll on, I don't know. I can go both ways on this.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer.
It's also, because you're also thinking about you have to consider, how does this fit into Clapfoot's business model, right? Because no,
fuck the business model.
Okay, there you go.
There's no business model. I mean, this comes from Mark too, so I don't know how, take it as far as you'd like to, but Mark hasn't spared a single thought, as far as I'm aware, on whether the game is going to be fiscally successful. As far as I'm aware,
okay.
and from what they tell, this is a passion project. All he really wants to do is make a really cool game, and it's the money, where the passion goes, the money will follow. So the business model doesn't matter. That's why I don't like all this. We're not doing loot crates. We're not doing microtransactions. That stuff doesn't even cross his desk. I've pitched. Well, what about cosmetic items? It's just a blanket no. He doesn't even want to think about it because it's not interesting to him.
I want a cool integrated war game that allows the community to develop its own. Yeah, it's cool to hear that. Honestly,
Yeah, and to sort of go on that point about it's more of a philosophical thing. You were saying, well, why add new toys when you need to fix all the underlying? But Mark has repeated this before, and I really agree with it. Is that the biggest games on the market, the ones that really have that staying power, are games that started out as mods. Games like Counter-Strike was a Half-Life mod. Games like League of Legends was a Warcraft 3 mod. These are the games that really stuck with us. And if we were going to break that down, that's basically what we're trying to emulate. Is we're not trying to create a game that's perfect. We're not trying to create a AAA title like Ubisoft is. We're just trying to create what's essentially a mod with 15 to 16 people working on it. That's just constantly working on it, and that's why I understand the argument that maybe it feels really disjointed, because it's almost like we're not getting anywhere. Where's the end game? Where's the AAA title that you've come to expect? But the reality is, it's we're happy just continuing to iterate. We just want to see where it'll take us. How big and how complete of a war can we get before it just doesn't work anymore? And I think that's in itself kind of an exciting aspect, and I don't think that's a small part of the reason why we've managed to cultivate such a huge, long-lasting following, is that these people aren't just interested in what the game is today, they're interested in what it could be tomorrow. And if we get too hung up, I'm not saying we shouldn't fix the holes, but if we get too hung up running in circles trying to fix the core problems, we'll end up losing those people who were excited about the future. And the best example of this was, do you remember skirmish mode? We spend so much time trying to fix skirmish mode. It was this for those who don't know, between the wars there wasn't a resistance phase. You used to have to do a 20v20 battle in order to just wait for the new war. And we spent all this time trying to create new ways to make that interesting, ways that you could make that affect the main war. And in the end it was you know what, screw it, let's just throw it all out, let's just create something super basic and ignore it, because we're never going to fix that problem. And what you've got today is resistance mode.
Yeah, skirmish, that's like a dead end. Don't go that route, because you've already got this whole thing. Sir, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to end the call here. We're gonna go on to others, but so sir, your thing is logistics, is that correct? Is that fair to say?
Well, that's my jam.
All right, then you know what? I think I'm assembling a specially picked community developer roundtable. Mark has agreed to it. We just need to figure out a time, so I think I'll add you on that. Plenty more people deserving of joining that in. So if you feel like I haven't picked you for that, that's because we can't have 20 people talking to Mark.
Can you pick me?
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I'll have to figure. It's good.
It's okay.
People will be
Why
disappointed.
can't it go?
People will be disappointed. So, sir, thank you so much for calling in. Do I still have access to the Discord? Yes, I do. Thank you so much for calling in, and the Foxhole Discord. And so I'll see you around next time.
So yeah,
I'm
All
quite
right.
super excited for this update.
Oh shoot! Hold on. Yeah, Lex, screw off. It's Pie's turn. Yeah, Lex, why would you cut like that? Pie, thank you so much for calling in.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, you're fine.
hello.
Hello. While you gather your thoughts, I just want to mention that regimental ads are now. The PressCorps is now accepting regimental ads for PressCorps Radio. We've got ads from the Roughnecks, from the 3rd Battalion, a Russian-based clan. And that ad is all in Russian, calling to their fellow brothers and brothers and sisters in arms, and as well as 2 ads from the Red Cross. So please, if you've got a regiment that you'd like to advertise, your group, let people know more about it, please send in your ad. Instructions are in the channel through the PressCorps Discord, and it's completely free. No need to buy in. Just follow the 60-second time limit, and you're good there. So anyway, Pie, thank you so much for calling in and your patience. How are you this evening?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited, and it's funny because I've been in front of the computer and the studio consoles all day, all morning, all afternoon, and now all evening. But every time I come back to Zero Dark PressCorps, I get excited. I never get tired of it. So you know what? I'm doing fantastic. Pie, what'd you have for us here?
All right. Well, I'm going to change that because I'm here to complain for as long as humanly possible about storm cannon.
Storm cannons. Okay, yeah. So they haven't been officially released into a concerted war yet, but you've got complaints. Go ahead.
The thing is, it's not just me with these complaints.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a bit of the community agrees with these in FOD and on Reddit. But the main thing I've been seeing is that the storm cannon doesn't really have a purpose to fulfill. So, Crazy, I would like to ask you, what purpose do you think the storm cannon will be used for?
Is that what we're going to do here? We're going to fight? Is that what you want to do, Pop? You want to fight? You want to fight on the air?
You know me. But
was there an intended purpose? Was there a thing was there a card in the developer, whatever software you use, and goes like, hey, you know what? We need something that does this. Oh, you know what? Storm cannon. Or did the storm cannon come first, where it's like, you know what? This would be really cool. Let's add a giant cannon. Which one came first? Chicken or the egg?
We actually had a number of ideas for cool little things that we could add to the end of the tech tree. We were like, we thought about the rockets, and we were like, when we released the rockets last year, it was a really cool game-changing mechanic, and we wanted to do something similar, but maybe not so drastic. And when we started looking at them, we settled on the artillery piece because the most interesting part about it was that it's going to make parts of the map that have otherwise been featureless and unused useful again. So if in Deadlands, I think all of us have fought up and down the same roads over and over again because it's just the way the map is laid out. And what we're hoping the storm cannon will bring is a way for players to change that. To be like, okay, I understand that this road is the most important road, but if I build my storm cannon on this mountain here, this mountain becomes the most important thing in this part of the map. And that's what we're most excited to see, is hopefully we'll see battles over other parts of the map, things that we haven't seen before. And so we spent a lot of time just going over all the empty parts of the world and making sure that they were filled in so that things like this can happen.
So it's actually more of a thought as an objective than player created objective, as opposed to what it actually does in terms of offensive or defensive, although that might be just a binary way of looking at it. Huh. All right. Pie, what are your thoughts to that answer?
Don't get me wrong. I know I'm here to complain, but I do really like the idea of the storm cannon of this update in general. And the whole idea of having these different objectives that aren't just town halls or relic bases or crossroads to fight over, that are actually player driven, is something that I've been waiting to see in this game for quite a Yeah.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
A problem with storm cannons is that they just simply are not worth it to build. I just don't see anybody building these for any other reason just than to say that they have built a storm cannon, and that's because of a whole host of problems, from damage to the amount of time it takes to build to the sheer effort it takes. Like, it takes 1,470 concrete materials to build just a storm cannon and its max engines. That's 164 player inventories of concrete, since it doesn't stack. So you can imagine how much time that's going to take to just be transporting from a truck or a town hall, relic base, any stockpile to your actual build. You have any thoughts on that?
So let me turn that around on you. So what would you say is the biggest hurdle to getting the storm cannon built up? Is it just delivering concrete to the storm cannon?
The biggest hurdle to building the storm cannon in general is just simply time. I feel like by the time because it takes 24 hours for concrete to dry in the first place, so that's already a whole day on just building the concrete bunkers. Then you have the whole problem of getting the concrete and transporting the concrete, and just simply hitting things with hammers to build the storm cannon and its accompanying engines. So I feel like by the time you get a storm cannon up, it's going to be at a point where it's not useful or nowhere important in the... Or you also have the whole problem of the front being pushed to your build site in the time that you're trying to get this storm cannon built.
Well, that's fair. I mean, it's going to take 2 days to actually set up. Our biggest, we're not averse to changing the times, not for this update, but for maybe future updates. But the reason why we wanted to make sure that it took a decent amount of time is because primarily we don't want it to be used to attack things. We don't want, we don't want to see these storm cannons being used to basically take central regions from the enemy. And how do you do that, right? I think it would be a real buzzkill if you spent 3 days trying to take Abandoned Ward, and then all of a sudden a storm cannon is here, or storm cannons are unlocked, and then Abandoned Ward falls. Like and then an even worse outcome would be like storm cannons are unlocked for both sides, and now it just becomes a game of setting up storm cannons within range of storm cannons to snipe them, and that to me would be a big buzzkill for the whole thing. So like maybe it does take too long, but if duration is the biggest hurdle, that's kind of a win for me, because at least then they'll get built, right? Like even if it takes 2 days, oh my god, it's going to take 2 days to build this. They're still going to build it because it's not like there's a better alternative. If you've got 2 days, why not?
Well, yeah, I would counter with saying the rocket is a better alternative. Do you agree or disagree?
Better alternative to building the storm cannon?
Yeah, if we're looking at the 2 super weapons that are currently in the game, the rocket and the storm, right? They're both in the game right now, or they will be.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the rocket is unchanged right now.
Yep.
So then, well, I guess they serve different functions. So you suggested that the storm cannon should not, but because it's a sandbox, but you're predicting that it won't be used as a siege cannon, offensively, but more so defensively, is the predicted use.
That's not, I wouldn't call it predicted. It's more like the hope, our hope. That's what we really want.
Oh, so you actually do intended for it to be a defensive weapon?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that geographically dominates a region.
Yeah, we want to see it set up somewhere where there's basically no enemy presence. We'd like to see it set up in, like, say, Westgate, when the enemy is like clearly encroaching. Maybe the wardens are pushing in, and you're losing this war, so you're gonna set up a storm cannon way back in Westgate because they'll be there eventually, and then But what we don't want to see is if those wardens are slowly encroaching on you, that they're encroaching on you with storm cannons to clear out everything you have. That would be a disappointment.
Okay. Pa, you got an answer to that or a reaction to that? Or something else?
There are some things I could comment on that, but Larson, I believe, has a great pin message in FOD that talks about that and how the storm cannon is based off of an offensive weapon, but in-game it's a defensive weapon. But anyway, my problem with the storm cannon isn't necessarily the amount of time it takes to build on itself, it's the amount of time it takes to build as opposed to what you get, which is, quite frankly, not a very powerful weapon. Like,
I'm not. I heard this. I'm hoping you could confirm this for me. I heard that the storm cannon is not going to take any power to fire, like it did in the dev branch. Is that true?
Not 0. It'll take 1 power to fire.
Okay, 1 power. Well, anyway, with the maximum amount of engines, 10 engines, it's going to take 30 minutes to charge 10 power, unless that has changed from the dev branch. Once again, all these numbers I'm saying are from the dev branch, so these may have changed or not. Just feel free to correct me if they have. But that's 30 minutes to even turn the thing 10 degrees, which is, quite frankly, not a lot of time to pick a target. So you're going to have to set this thing on a front, or target this thing on a front pretty precisely. So the problem with that being, of course, it is going to be very hard to target with this thing, seeing as the farthest you can see with binoculars is 130 meters, or some distance around that. And I am ignoring the fact that I'm sure, like, Foxhole Global, and there's going to be plenty of websites that'll do these calculations for us. But for speaking solely about the game, we're not going to be able to accurately hit targets with this storm cannon, as opposed to what it costs to just fire this thing in time, manpower, and resources.
And also on top of that, well, I don't think it's meant to be used against mobile targets. Anything other than a really, really patient battle tank. I don't think, you're not supposed to hit a squad of infantry. Maybe not even like a group of half-tracks, because that's just too fast for a storm cannon, I would think, to relay all that information. So we're talking pushes encroaching on your region, and you have a storm cannon in reserve. Talking theoretical here. You would fire on, say, an encroaching base, right? An encroaching outpost that's slowly developing into the forward operating base for all operations, for all enemy operations in the region. I think that's the intended purpose. So when you're saying it's not worth that, it's not even worth to hit a base that's encroaching on your region.
Yes, and that's also partially because of the rather abysmal amount of damage that it does do, which is, I was only able to find the numbers for 70% for a direct hit on a battle tank. And with a shell deviation of like 30 to 40-ish meters, you're not going to be able to effectively hit specific targets. So you're going to be hitting many targets at once, which are then going to be out-repaired, which is something that has been a problem since the very beginning of artillery, is the fact that you can out-repair structures way faster than they're being built. And this is the reason why my clan, SOM, does these crazy 15 Howie batteries to kill tier 3 town halls. I mean, partially it's because of fun, but it's also because it's necessary to have at least 8 howitzers to kill a tier 3 town hall without it being out repaired. So when you have go ahead.
But I don't want to get into the specifics. But like, have you like fired this thing at a town hall already?
Not a town hall specifically, and I was unable to find any numbers for that, although I did look. But
because it should definitely out damage 3 howitzers by a lot.
Well, I think the fear is not just damage, but it's damage per second, damage per shot.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's say in a theoretical battlefield, you're shooting a town hall, and the storm cannon just shot, and it's really damaged this town hall. I don't know if it's destroyed it or not. Maybe not. But if we're gonna accept the 30 minutes it takes to fire, I don't know if those are the real numbers. I think those are the numbers in the dev branch. It takes a half hour to get from one shot to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming all things are perfect.
30 minutes to fire 10 shots, I believe now.
Oh, 10 shots?
10 shots, but then again, the shell deviation is like 30-ish to 40-ish meters, so you're really not going to be able to accurately hit even a tier 3 town hall.
Huh.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's a shot every 3 minutes, still you do a lot of damage. I'm swinging back and forth because again, I haven't seen it, and that's the problem with talking theoreticals
At
without
least in
seeing
the
it.
dev branch and the numbers that I could find from other people, it
Sure.
does not do very much.
Yeah. Okay. See, that's where that's where I had some problems. Is that I actually think a lot of people are getting information second or third, because like I've tested this thing. It's really hard. It's like PressCorps said. It's hard because we didn't really give you guys the tools to thoroughly like examine it. So I understand why a lot of people haven't really gone in and done the numbers themselves. But having like manned it and fired it, and so like I'm just sitting here trying to balance it to make sure that it's not too overpowered and not too weak. Like I don't know. It's kind of like what Canadian Fox said in chat. Like I actually didn't find it to be that hard to get the azimuth or distance to a town hall, and then when I was like on target, I found that the town hall just kind of like melted. And I don't know if maybe the problem is that like actually I'm almost certain a big part of the problem is because in the dev branch it takes 10 power to fire, that a lot of people were like, okay, I'm going to fire 2 shells and I'm out of power, so that's the end of my test, and I didn't kill the town hall, so this is pointless. And now that the power is 1, I have a feeling that sentiment is going to change, but until players actually get their hands on it, I have no idea. Like, I mean, I've got my educated guesses, but I have honestly no idea. Maybe it's too weak. Maybe it's not worth the cost. Maybe it's ridiculously overpowered, and something's going to have to change. It's like, honestly, it's like a coin toss at this point.
So I think what you're getting, the conclusion you're coming to is, yeah, what everyone could be saying could be right, but we won't know until it's actually used in a genuine war with actual battlefield conditions and a whole logistics, operation setup that's helping it. So really, like I said earlier, each war is a test. Just a large-scale test in its own. So we won't know until it's used. So I don't know.
Yeah, I could be completely wrong about everything I've said. And
we're completely right.
Certainly, we're completely right.
But you know what, man? That's part of the fun. I actually made a joke. Google Forms where I was like, all right, everybody who thinks it's too overpowered, sign your name here, and then that way we could like, it's sort of like a bet, but with only pride on the line, and where everybody's just kind of like taking their best shot at it. And I really hope that just comes out as a good laugh at the end of it, because I thought it's like it's anybody's game at this point. Nobody has any idea if this is going to be too strong or too weak.
And I think the problem, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good that people are actually, I guess, having these conversations, to actually look for problems. That's the whole point of Dev Branch and Early Access. But I think the extra step that a lot of people take where they, where there's kind of an attitude of no room for error. And I guess you don't want an attitude of allowing so much error where it's broken for an early access game, although I would hope we'd have enough trust that wouldn't happen. But then you ask people about Update 26. No, it's tricky because I go back and forth in my head. You can actually see my brain going back and forth as we go along. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to settle where KFC is, and I think the greatest fear of all, the worst case scenario that comes out of the Storm Cannon is that it's overpowered or it's underpowered. What happens then? Oh well.
The fun is in the guessing.
That's War 45. There's maybe a chance they could tweak it if it's just that obscene where it wipes out a region or broken. I don't know, but that's just how War 45 is just gonna have to go, I guess. And I know that's not a satisfactory.
We can use this as an excuse to why we didn't win War 45.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's why, low key, that's actually why whenever I see people saying, oh yeah, Collies won 5 in a row. Oh, Wardens, we won 10 in a row. I was like, no, that doesn't really matter. But
let me put it to you this way: we have already got a hotfix in place for both eventualities. If it is overpowered, there's a hotfix already ready to go. If it's underpowered, hotfix ready to go. Like, we are so uncertain about where it's going to land. Even inside the dev team, there wasn't consensus about whether it was too OP or too weak. And so it's just been, like I said, the fun is in the guessing, right? It's this theory crafting stage where, like, maybe one side decides, you know what, we're not going to build it. It's not worth it. And the other side does, and one side is going to win this war, and it'll live forever.
And
that'll be the fun part.
And it's taken us like 2 hours to get to this conclusion. But I think I don't know. It's not really a problem. It's like an endemic thing that's hurting the community. But I think there's this thought floating amongst the community, amplified by Reddit posts, amplified by really rapid-fire Discord exchanges where things get out of control and there's no nuance and people are just assuming things in their head. That the thing is, the problem is, no one's having that fun, right? But enough people aren't having that fun getting to that journey, right? They're disappointed when that there weren't enough safeguards on a rocket, and then it was used on a town that we could have recaptured. Complete made-up scenario in my head. No way that would happen. But that not enough people are having fun on that journey, and they're expecting a perfect war. It's funny because I catch myself saying that. It's like, well, on the other hand, you don't want something so broken, and you don't want the devs getting lazy, so we should totally just keep bombarding them with DMs saying, hey, this is broken, you should fix it, but maybe be nicer about it. This is a horrible train of thought that people are going to go back on and be like, why is this man hosting this show? So, Pi, thank you so much for calling in. Did you have anything else for us here? I'm being serious. Did you have anything? Because I totally took that over.
No, I'm just, I'm just hoping it just worked.
Yep.
Me too, man. The entire dev team has their fingers crossed for exactly that.
Oh boy.
Could that be the new subtitle for Foxhole instead of Persistent World Warfare? It just...
No, it should be I hope it works.
I hope, yeah, that's
just
perfect.
Have fun.
I expect to see it for Tuesday.
Alright, hey, Pi, thank you so much for calling in. Duly appreciate it. That was a great call. I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Alright, have a good one. Alright, let's see if he's still here. Lek.
Oh.
Thank you so much for your patience. I should note that we did start earlier in the evening this show, so if we go to 3 hours, which is we're well on our way to doing, I did start earlier, so there's that.
Yeah.
Thanks to KFC for essentially doing this for free, for taking his time. You don't work hourly, do you? You work on a salary, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, because if you're hourly, your clock is messed up.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've talked to Mark about this already. Like, I've been doing some pretty serious overtime hours these last couple of weeks, but I'm just going to take some time off later during the holidays, which will be really nice for me and the wife, so.
Perfect. All right.
And time to get to play the game when it's actually live.
Yeah.
Like, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm actually, I come today with not so much talking about the previous war because, well,
no one has. Not a single call, and honestly, I'm okay with that because this is about to drop. This update is about to drop in less than 24 hours, so that's fine.
We're more concerned about like other things. Now, you did interrupt me in the middle of a very interesting logistics conversation with Stranger.
Oh, when I pulled you in? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. It's fine. But the main thing I want to talk about is one of the things I already DM'd Crazy about earlier, which was efficiency system, and then two other main aspects of logistics, which are, or not aspects of logistics, sorry, let me go back. Main thing I want to talk about, the other, like, I have three central problems. One is efficiency, and the other two are two problems that I can see being solved by the same solution. Two birds with one stone, if you will.
Sure.
The one of those problems is the complete, like, just lack of any evolution within the logistical areas of the game, right? There is very little improvement that you make over the course of a war, and you don't really, as Logi, you don't really do anything for yourself. You mostly just spend the entirety of every war just purely building stuff for the front lines, that kind of thing. You don't ever build improvements to your infrastructure. And that has been a big point of contention for me, as I'm the train guy, right? So what else would I want? I want railways that you can build up over the course of a war that then, allow your logistical capacity to increase. And that's mainly coming from, like, the main thing that draws me to Foxhole, that drew me here, that has kept me here, aside from the wonderful community and the mostly transparent dev stuff, aside from, like, the moderation thing until recently, crazy. It's been the sandbox nature of things, and one of the worst killers of any sandbox game is linearity or path of least resistance decision making kind of thing. And
a meta,
the main,
right?
Yeah, not necessarily a meta, because within a meta there can be different options, so to speak.
Okay.
But the linearity and sort of lack of proper choice. Because in Foxhole, you play on your front line, and on your front line, when you're picking somewhere to push, you pick where would be a good idea to push to break through the enemy lines, where would be a good idea to push for resource concerns, or where would be a good idea to push because if we can hold this spot, we will be at a massive defensive advantage. These are all the things that you consider when pushing, and then they're what you consider when you build up defensive networks in these frontline towns and these and your forward bases and that kind of thing. They're also what you consider when you're bringing up supplies and that kind of thing to actually launch these offensives. However, with logistics, you don't really get an opportunity to, like, advance or change up your gameplay throughout a war. It's the same thing all the time. And that's not due to lack of tools, it's due to lack of being able to develop your tools. At least that's the way I see it. Now, the two, I'm gonna split up the two, logic problems into the tech tree and the, gameplay of. Now, logistics, or not the logistics, the tech tree, it has only gotten worse since its introduction, I feel. Mostly because it started off as very linear and it hasn't changed, but then with the recent thing, it's now time-based, and there is very little player agency in developing it. You'd agree, right?
I would agree, but I think that was more just a band-aid fix.
Yeah.
Until, they figure out a system that works better. But yeah, sure, that's the sacrifice made, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The reason I see such a flaw with the tech tree is because it leads to every war being roughly the same amount of time and all that kind of stuff, which sounds good in theory, and it is for, the purposes of what you want to accomplish, but it comes with the very negative side effect of every war feeling very samey. And that's mostly because in the early game, you're very limited, and I know there's some people that love that kind of stuff, or love the rifle-only combat, but I feel like the limited options early on, especially with not owning very basic stuff, namely medical stuff, some utility items, as well as wrenches and whatnot. I think wrenches anyway, or is it wrenches or binos? I think it's binos actually. But this basic shit that you just should have, and there's very little so. Did I already use the StarCraft analogy?
I don't think you did, although I will just butt in here and say I do believe that a lot more should be unlocked from day zero.
More?
Unlocked. More tech should be available, so we shouldn't have to wait 5 days for a trauma kit to be unlocked. That's just me. Sorry, tangent, but go continue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of what my main grievances with the system. But
okay.
That's a very simple fix, and that's just trimming the fat off of it. So I think the problem.
So what's your solution here for that?
My solution is reaching back in time to now this is a bit oh well, we should turn the clock back. I'm a blah blah blah. No, I'm not.
You're talking about narratively or just in terms of the development?
Yes, I am a Foxhole boomer, but what I mean, what I more mean to say is that it very much. Now this is kind of tying into the ideas of infrastructure. My issues with tech, or that it's global, and like not that it's global, but it's a very artificial thing. It's just everywhere always, and there's not really. You just bring these magical MacGuffin parts to a place, and my main like the way, and then as well as
what's the solution? Because we know the problem that you've laid forth. What's your proposed solution?
My proposed solution is I have two, which one is very extreme, so I won't give it time because I'd like to get to the other stuff that I like, the other smaller stuff. But the
storm cannons are extreme. Yeah, go for it.
No, they're not. They're pretty shit, and Crazy can go suck a fat
We already
one.
talked about that, but continue.
Yeah. Whoa. Oh, in that regard, he can go suck a fat one, as in a fat storm cannon. Right? Wink, wink. No? Shit. Okay, anyway.
He's already winking. His profile picture is already winking. But continue, Lek. Yeah, what's the solution here? What's the solution? What's your idea?
My main idea is just going back to like a kind of bundling system for how like tech is unlocked and tying that in a way to infrastructure. And I had a lengthy conversation with Mark about this, and I know he doesn't really agree with certain aspects of the proposal I make, but I'd like to see the ability to build our own like machines or factories that don't rely on time, but rather player interaction in order to build items, and like being able to optimize via gameplay rather than optimize via timers. And that's just the one aspect. From like that's
can you give us an example of that actually before you go on? Can you give us an example of that system you just theorized? So let's say you're saying like player made factories or.
Somewhat. If you've ever played, it's the game Hans plays that I've immediately forgotten, despite the fact that I was talking about it in the lounge. Company of Heroes, is it?
Yeah, that's his big one. That's his professional game.
Yeah. So in that game, I've never played it, never touched it. Actually, I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna use a StarCraft reference thing here because I think it's actually a bit easier. In StarCraft, each race has its own little tech tree, right? Now, I'm just going to go Terran, because that's the one I'm actually somewhat familiar with. You have to build up your barracks, to build your factory, to build your spaceship place. And then there's like a whole thing with upgrades and like that kind of stuff elsewhere. But the main thing that, the main like point of the system would be to tie upgrading to a specific location, as well as having sort of specialization for what you produce by tying it to its own localized little bundle system, where like you build up a specialized factory that can produce a certain level of, let's say, armored vehicles. Like it's a tier 1 vehicle factory. Now, because you have a tier 1 vehicle factory, then you can produce, or maybe you can upgrade it to a tier 2, or maybe you can build a tier 2 beside it. And that one would then unlock a couple extra vehicles. And then you do this all the way up till the higher tech stuff. And in conjunction with this, the higher tier stuff would be very difficult to produce, right? So that way you wouldn't have like a ton of very early game like sort of armor, unless you like put all your tech into specifically armored weaponry.
Could the analogy be made that it is facility, like the facilities, like you know how the factory has different facilities for different things, but instead of it based on upgrade parts where you mine for upgrade for this currency and then you insert currency into factory and then factory unlocks and now you can make this thing, instead of that, everything is everything is unlocked on a certain level, and then the more you use it for that thing, like say I want to dedicate this factory just for RPGs, it specializes in doing. Is that what we're getting at?
That's part of it. Part of it is like stuff becoming better over time, obviously based on like player interaction with it, rather than just it being better over time. Like probably like you put more upgrade parts into it to make them assemble faster or something like that. But the main idea behind it is if you played during the campaign era, you'd remember that each building didn't just like the factory didn't like have you didn't have specific like one factory that had the facilities, you'd have each factory, and then the sort of facility like analogy was that each one had levels, and then with each level you'd unlock a certain tiered bundle of like, okay, tier 1 is rifles, tier 2 is shotguns and SMGs, tier 3 is revolvers and X other weaponry, and then that's how it worked for that. You could probably get a lot more specific and say small arms, grenades, artillery shells, tank shell, or like weapon shell, and like a whole bunch of different things like that. And the way you do it is that things would exponentially get more costly the higher you go. But the thing is that with all the upgrade parts you get, you could throw them all into one thing, like armor, or small arms, or medical, or like some kind of like specialization, like you make it so that you can make it quicker. But the thing is that if you put all your eggs in one basket, then you're going to be lacking the sort of variety that you're going to need in case you encounter an unknown threat kind of thing, right? It's a concept of going for greed versus going for a safe bet. Sometimes it's right to greed, sometimes it's right to go for the safe bet.
So,
And-
okay, yeah.
Now, that's the sort of bundling aspect. The other aspect is being able to build our own like not specialized buildings, but like Kloos made a great suggestion a while back for like resource hoppers that just dump resources into any flatbeds with resource containers below them, or any resource containers below them in case they're on let's say Mystery 2020 vehicle. And stuff like that. Small additions that would allow people to build these up in locations, and they'd generally help the quality and the flow of logistics.
So, okay, before I pitch it to Crazy here, have you written these things down?
All of them. Every single
Not
book.
you,
Been
not
taking
you,
notes.
Crazy. Lek, have you written these things down?
I've had conversations over text with Crazy and Mark.
That doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
What do you mean?
Yeah, Lek.
Oh, you mean like in a giant folder?
No, not a giant folder. Just pull up a Google Doc. I feel bad talking down to you. Pull up a Google and just do 1, 2, just like number it or put it in bullet points and like illustrate a process out for us, because it's hard.
Like,
this is high level stuff, which I'm not against, but yeah, I think we just need a little more help illustrating this or laying it out for us.
It is kind of an abstract sort of thing without like a concrete example, or like a bullet point thing. And I'm probably gonna like over like the next couple of weeks work on something small that I could just like show Crazy, and I'd be like, hey, this thing, what do you think?
I'm not joking. Put it in Google Slides or Microsoft.
I'm not joking.
Have
you seen?
Because
No. I could put it in an Imgur album, and they'd add it to the game. Remember, Crazy? Remember those 2 ideas that you then later added? The electricity idea, but though not entirely accurately, and then the bunker system idea. Remember those, Crazy?
Yep, I
remember how you stole those ideas from me? Remember how you owe me 10% equity in Clapfoot?
I cannot confirm nor deny whether I've read any of those documents.
Well, I'm going to be contacting your lawyers, sir.
I would put down $50.
Anyway.
I would put down 50. I will put down so many loonies to just say that, hey, this is. He had never seen any of those.
No, actually, I actually do want to give Lex some credit here. Is that like this is exactly how ideas, like I was saying this at the very beginning of this call. It was like this is how game design documents get started. Is they usually start with a really cool, and we just build on it from there. And I'm not gonna lie, Lek, yours had influence in our eventual design. But I wouldn't say that you were the only one to arrive at those conclusions. I think several on the dev team and several in the community as well had a lot to pitch into them. Yeah. And in the end, we had to find some middle ground between what was technically feasible and what players wanted. But without a doubt, those documents, the ones you actually drew, the ones you did like a full-on drawing with like comics and stuff, like those are the things that go places. Because it's easy for us to share those ideas.
I'm probably going to do a comic thing for like this bundling idea. Though actually, if you read the comic, part of the bundling idea is present within the vehicle factory, the small vehicle factory idea within that document. like unlocking specific vehicles for the small vehicle factory that I proposed. That's you know the old bundling system though, right? So like I don't really have to explain it that much. But
yes, before you continue, because I want to double down on what Jeffrey Jennings is that you gotta create those comics, right?
No, I will.
Like those concepts that you drew for us, they went the distance because it was easy for us to read, easy for us to digest, and it was so easy for us to disseminate that information that the entire team could understand what you were talking about without any effort. But like just telling us, like having these conversations with me and Mark, it doesn't go anywhere because we can't relate those ideas to other people. It's harder to disseminate them. So you gotta make those posts, make it on Reddit, all that stuff.
I'm not gonna put it on Reddit. That's dumb. I might put it on Reddit. But
oh, well, hold on. No, I have to step in here and say, absolutely put it on Reddit. Hey, controversial opinion, this is my own. I'm glad the brainstorming channel from the Foxhole Discord is gone. That never helps.
That is a spicy take. Yeah.
Very spicy take. I don't care. Hey.
You should have said that while Sir was here. Yeah, he'd be fucking sucking you off at this rate. Christ.
I didn't need him to.
You need him to, or don't need him to? I don't need it.
No. What I'm saying is that I don't know if people have picked up on this. I keep saying put it on the Reddit because it's such a slower paced thing where people can actually methodically think out their thoughts before having to be forced to immediately respond to something because I cannot stand explaining things in the Foxhole Discord because there's 63,000 people using that thing simultaneously. Not really, but and things get lost. Nuance gets lost. Everyone's points of views get lost, and everyone hates each other because no one knows how to communicate.
While I completely agree, you're still gonna get people spewing garbage. Anyway, going back to I'm gonna be done in 5 minutes. I've got two last little points I want to make on the efficiency system, and then this is a very who was it? Who was in here 2 people ago before Sir?
Before Sir,
Foxy,
it was Foxy.
Yeah, Foxy mentioned about assembling, right? So this is a quick one. Assembling, we need to be able to press a button to cancel assembling, Crazy, because there's a glitch. 2 things. 1, there's a glitch that'll sometimes force you to go through the assembling timer without being able to actually get it, and you'll be able to move around and everything, but you just won't get anything. And that is one of the most annoying bugs because you can't actually restart it or cancel it or do anything. And if you take out a long item, you just get fucked over for however long that takes you, and then you don't get anything at the end of the timer. But it's also in case you accidentally take out a really lengthy item, you accidentally click a sniper rifle when you want an HMG. That's also pretty damn painful. But just a cancel button. That is very important. Right click or press F or press E or just some random button just to cancel it. Now, the efficiency system rant, I already sent it to you, but I'm going to bring it up here for Joffrey. Now, the efficiency system is very flawed, and I'm going to be relying on what I wrote to you earlier here. But it's flawed in the sense that it demoralizes the losing team because part of defending is attacking, unfortunately, because you have to deny the enemy their spawn points and you have to be able to actually make gains, because if you're always on the back footing, if you're always on your back foot, eventually you're going to fall over. And that's just the way it works, because when you have less resources, you need to get aggressive and you need to take territory to fuel your economy so you can actually compete. And when you artificially just can't take enough territory to sustain your thing because each thing now takes 100 parts instead of 10, then you just kind of get screwed over based on the enemy taking more territory early. As well as it kind of suffers from the fact that once territory is taken, you have to reorganize, resupply, and all that stuff. The usual stuff you have to do. But then, depending on many things, it's just as easy for the attackers to push in as it is for you to try and push back into your own territory. You don't retain, just because you expanded into that territory, it means your efficiency goes down. If you then lose it, you don't get that efficiency back. It's gone, it's evaporated. Meaning that if you lose like one line, then you have to focus on putting together a defensive line and not on attacking. And that limits you even further because your resources just keep getting stretched thinner and thinner until eventually you just pop. And it just becomes easier for the attacking side to push. They do get limited by the system as well, based on how much territory they can take, but they don't really have to keep taking territory. They take the territory, they put down some defenses, secure their gains, and then push out again when the efficiency resets. Problem is that the losing side just has the same efficiency and just the same chance of getting territory. And when you're already losing, you need to be able to take more territory, and that's just impossible under this system. Okay, did you like the word vomit?
Good. Putting it in a Google Doc is very helpful. No,
for the love. Will there be a quiz after? Because I don't know.
No. We're teasing.
Welcome to Lex Lecture.
Who said
the lecture?
Someone said this is getting heated. Fine. I think we've all insulted each other at some point.
I'm going to lecture you on how to implement trains, Chris.
Absolutely. Help me understand this because I'm actually not well versed in the efficiency system myself.
How does it work?
The more territory you lose, is there any change to your efficiency?
Losing territory doesn't affect your efficiency, but having to retake territory. If you build up, okay, so you know what the husk system also plays into this. When you take a husk, that doesn't cost any upgrade parts, right? It just keeps the upgrades it has. If it's tier 2, it stays tier 2.
The husk of a structure, like a factory or something, right? Of a destroyed factory?
No. Factories, no, not factories. Only FOBs.
But, yeah.
But the thing is that if you take an FOB, suddenly you've got your, it does work like how I am saying, right, Crazy? I'm not making a mistake here? You don't have to spend upgrade parts to get active garrison if you steal a fob?
I have to be very careful about what I say here because we intentionally didn't talk about the specifics of this mechanic. I will say that what is public knowledge is
this isn't about. No, I'm not talking about efficiency here. I'm talking about when you take a destroyed fob husk as the attacking team, does it cost upgrade parts? I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Not to rebuild a husk, no.
Not to rebuild a husk. You keep the AI garrison if you can claim it, as either team. If it's tier 2 or tier 1 with garrison.
Okay.
Okay, so, because that's part of my point here, and that's why I want to clarify, because that also contributes to, it doesn't affect town halls, and you still have to put in the effort for town halls, but when you take an FOB, you don't have to spend the upgrade parts, meaning you don't lose efficiency if you're on the offensive, meaning that it just, further contributes to you, not having to waste as much efficiency, and that just,
if you're on the offensive?
Yeah, because if you take an FOB, then you take ground, right? And that doesn't cost efficiency because you don't have to put in upgrade parts.
No, because if you take a fob, it resets it.
But you just said it didn't. It keeps as AI.
I thought you were saying you have to use upgrade parts to rebuild it. No, it just takes EMAT.
No, okay, a fob is only useful if it has the AI in it, right? A fob basically only exists to power AI and creep forward and move the spawn point up.
To clarify, once more, we're just saying that when you capture an enemy's outpost and you rebuild it using the BMATs, will the automation be retained? The various things, the upgrade parts.
Yeah, that would
have been spent on it. Will that have been retained, or will that reset? I don't know anymore.
So again, if you take an enemy fob that's tier 3, and you try to rebuild it, it works the same way as the town.
It does. Okay,
so it resets it to level 1.
Well, it resets the in-game in the in thing, but it doesn't reset the health of it.
Wiki.
Okay, so that goes against my point then. But it
it does.
Okay, it doesn't go against it it doesn't go against it. It just removes that point from me, right? Anyway,
but I want to reiterate that exactly that's one of those misconceptions. We don't talk about the efficiency system for obvious reasons,
that had nothing. That whole point had
the efficiency system was literally a brute force method to help combat population imbalance.
None of what I was talking about right there about the upgrade parts, like, that wasn't about efficiency, because it has to do with my argument here, but it doesn't have to do with, like, does that impact efficiency? Because if you have to spend upgrade parts, then it does. But, like, anyway. My main, like, you've already heard my main point, but I'll just re-summarize. It's basically just that when you lose territory, you have to spend the same amount of effort retaking it as the attackers do moving into it. But you also have to reorganize your push, which takes more time and more effort. Meaning that typically before efficiency, what would happen is that your enemy would push into your territory, and you'd try to reclaim the fob, or you'd try to, like, make a defensive line close, and you'd be able to retake it, right? And you'd be able to get back up to where you were. But with how it works now, if the enemy takes the fob, then you want to retake it, well, you have to put in the same upgrade parts in the first place. So you end up, like, it's the same. The problem is the same amount of effort, despite you retaking lost land, even if you held it, like, a couple, like, 6 hours ago. It costs the same as the other team, like, because, and the whole dichotomy about, like, how it usually takes, like, 3, if you want to defeat an enemy, you bring, like, 3 times the men, or that sort of, or 3 times the firepower if you want to attack an area. That just doesn't apply with the efficiency system, is my main issue. It takes the same amount of efficiency in order to take an area.
It's, this is...
Or it decreases it by the same amount whether you're retaking an old defended area or attacking a new area of the enemies.
This is difficult to talk about just because we don't have all the information, and I think the developers don't want to give us all the information because people don't want to game. They don't want people gaming it, right?
Precisely.
Okay, yeah. So it's funny because that's tricky. That's something I think we've learned multiple times, and with the efficiency system, it's no different. That the moment you don't have full transparency on something, everyone harps on it, and probably for good reason, probably. But it's just like you have this opportunity. You leave this black hole of conspiracy. Not conspiracy. I'm not really making conspiracy about how it works. You're not. I think I know how it works is my thing, and I think it doesn't slow down wars like you think it does. I think it just demoralizes the losing team because they have to put in more effort to retake that area, despite them. Maybe they still even have defenses there. But it'll still cost them the same amount of efficiency, and then after they retake it, they'll have to wait the same amount of time as the enemy to be able to push back, and that you can't keep up the momentum if you're trying to swing things around. You have to still wait, and then let's say you get pushed back 2 regions. Let's say you get pushed back a region one day, and then it stalemates, and then you get pushed back another the next. If you want to retake your lost land, it's going to cost you 2 days. And during those 2 days where you can't have explosive growth back, it'll be kind of like you're limited on resources as well. And now you might think, okay, well, you're taking 2 territories, and they took 2 territories and it cost them 2 days, but if they didn't have to, then they'd take it in 2 days. That's not necessarily always true, because typically the further you go to the back line, the sooner the enemy gets supplied on logistics, the longer your logistic lines get, and the more difficult it is for you to push. So it just doesn't make sense to me that the efficiency system works the same way, seemingly the same way anyway, no matter where you get pushed to. Even if you're closer to home, it's still just as easy for the enemy to attack as it is for you to have to retake. Okay,
I think I've thoroughly surmised it.
I will say that. Well, first of all, I'll say that I don't know how much longer we can go on the call, but I will say that it's that the main factor in efficiency. KFC, can you answer this? The main factor of efficiency is population. The population of a faction, right?
No, that's
No,
just
it's
the
not.
problem we're trying to address. Necessarily, it's not necessarily directly tied to population, but the point here is that if it's exactly what Lex said, it's how we know the system is working. Is that there's this complaint that's come up as a result that like when I want to push, I can't push because I'm out, and that's what it's intended to do. It was exactly what was. Let me finish. It was exactly like what was said earlier on. They were saying, like, you know, they come on Saturday and then they take a whole region and then it's like GG. And it's like that's exactly what we're trying to stop. Is we don't want suddenly there's a 2-to-1 population imbalance and the game is over just because they were on 2-to-1 for one day. We needed to slow it down. We needed to make it so that okay, if you've got too many people on, you've got to there's only so much you can do.
My point is that it works both ways, and it also limits comebacks. That's my main point. And
That's fair.
if you can't make a proper comeback, then it demoralizes your faction, and demoralizing is typically how people lose because morale fits into population, and if one person is unhappy and they don't want to play, then their friend is less likely to play, and it just trickles through the entire faction. And
so we're saying that. Oh, sorry, finish.
That's like my whole argument here is that limiting the ability to make a comeback is it just fucks over a team's morale instantly.
So the thing is, efficiency, at least from what we've seen, is that it has an equal distribution of its effects.
Negatives. Yeah. At least that's the way.
But the problem is, even if it's equal, that hurts the defending side more.
Yeah,
the side that is disadvantaged gets hurt more because now they don't have. Go ahead.
I don't know how I didn't think about this. There's a real world comparison. A flat, let's just say everyone had a flat income tax of 10% and there were no tax brackets and whatnot.
Is tax analogy really going to make this easier?
Yeah, that doesn't sound like.
No. It will.
Okay.
Because typically the less amount of resources you have in the real world, it's money. In game, it's like resources, like BMATs and all that, and salvage and all the good shit. And the sort of thing is that if you're taxing 10%, because the less resources you have, the more you have to spend on keeping things going, right? And the more resources you have, the less percentage that you have to spend to keep things going, right? And because of that, it leads to the person, if you're getting both flat taxed at 10%, then it leads to it leads to one person coming out a lot better than the other person because they're having to spend a larger percentage on that they'd normally be using on keeping.
I'm sorry, I've lost you. I'm so sorry, I've lost you.
Sorry. It's okay.
It's okay.
The analogy is good. I'm just fucking it up. Sorry.
It's fine. Seeps CEPS0 Seepso has made a good point in the chat that how many wars have we had this efficiency system? One?
I think no, more than one. I think it's 2 or 3 at this point.
2 or 3? Yeah. KFC, would you say that the efficiency system is working as intended? Did you say that earlier?
Yep.
It's working as intended.
Maybe not as well as it could, but
it's working as intended in the sense that it's limiting attacks, but that also has negative effects of the defending team's morale, unfortunately. Right. But yeah, anyway, I've said that enough, and I think people get the point already. So, I'll say it there. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a good time. It's
always a good one, Joffrey.
All right, have a good one. KFC. Oh shoot! There we go. KFC. How much longer can you take of this? Because you have a whole rollout of a new update to handle tomorrow.
I got 10 more minutes, and then I gotta get off.
You got 10 more minutes. All right, let's get the next guy in here, and then we'll I will keep going until the oh, I'm gonna move a whole channel. I'm gonna keep going until all the callers are good. But KFC's. I think this is the last one with KFC. Stranger Days, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am alive somehow.
Okay.
Hi, stranger.
Hi, KFC. I'm here to complain about bunkers.
Oh, okay. In that case, I gotta go right now.
I actually spent quite a bit of time doing stuff with bunkers.
These are the trench bunkers, to clarify.
Okay.
Yes, the trench bunker.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Specifically because just starting out before we get into anything major, the cost in making a bunker far exceeds the effort that it it's far below the amount of effort it takes to actually destroy the bunker. The bunker is so difficult to construct, to get up, build all of the things you need for it, put all of the various doors, firing ports, and so on it, and then it's just so easily destroyed by the opposition. I feel like it's honestly one of the things that was the most interesting about the trench update is this sort of hands-on bunker construction wherein the player gets to decide what shape the bunker is, what the bunker does, what it's for, where can you fire from, where can you get into and out of the bunker, and then to see them be so utterly easy to destroy is incredibly disappointing, just right off the bat. And now that I've gotten out of the way, I would like for you to rebuttal.
Easy?
Yes, it takes like 5 LMG clips to destroy a bunker.
Wait, are you talking T2?
Yeah, T2 bunker.
Oh, okay, that's different. I thought you were talking about like the concrete bunkers, and like my eyebrow shot way the fuck.
Well, with the concrete bunkers, that's a whole separate issue of it's just a pain in the ass to do anything involving concrete, and that's before we even get into talking about the 24-hour timer, which is bad in and of itself because you of all people should know how many partisans are roaming through the back lines scouting out things, and do you think any partisan is ever not going to jerk off onto a bunker and completely ruin it?
Do you think a partisan's going to be able to just delete these bunkers?
Most assuredly. In fact, I count on it.
Oh, okay.
I feel as though partisans are going to see a T3 bunker and they're just going to start laughing maniacally. Because, I mean, well, what are we going to do? Sit there for a full fucking day and defend a bunker in Foxhole? Fuck no, we're not. Hell, even when the T3 bunker is finished setting, I still think that the partisans will easily destroy it. Because, what are you gonna do? Sit there 24 hours a day and watch a T3 structure? No, you're not.
But your main complaint is with the T2 bunkers, right?
My main complaint is with the whole bunker system in and of itself. I absolutely adore it. I love the modularity of it. I love constructing my own little, nest of defense and then seeing it stand against the enemy. The issue therein becomes that it's just so much work for so little payoff. Like, the firing slits themselves are, 30 BMATs, and then on top of that you need to spend another, 50 BMATs to upgrade it to Tier 2. So, just for a single box of Tier 2 with firing slits on it, not even doors, we're already looking at 80 BMATs. Then the door adds another, I think it's 20 BMATs onto that, and then you probably want to have a Tier 2 trench connected to it, because if the trench is destroyed, I believe they now turn into husks, yes?
Yes, the basic fort pieces turn into husks now.
Oh, okay, it's 75 BMATs to get a bunker to Tier 2. Never mind what I was saying. Sammy's got my back on that. So, that's 75 just to get it to T2, and then an additional amount of BMATs to put the firing ports on it, and then more to put the door on it. Whereas a single T1 trench, a single T2 trench just costs 30 BMATs, and the T2 trench will last far longer than the bunker.
Yeah, but the T2 trench doesn't shoot back.
The bunker doesn't shoot back either. We're not even talking about the rifle garrisons. We're talking about a bunker. We're just talking about a box in the ground that you can stand in.
Okay.
The issue is that the bunker health doesn't increase to the amount that you need it to. The bunker in and of itself is already weaker than the trench by an exceptional value, but then on top of that, when you add on bunker pieces, it does not do enough to the bunker to increase its health. because you're also making it exceptionally larger and easier to attack when you do that.
Okay, but I mean, do you feel like the bunker should be tougher than a trench?
I feel like they should certainly be tougher than a trench, especially with the amount of BMATs you're forcing us to put into them. The amount of effort that we put into creating the bunkers should be equal to the amount of effort that we're getting out of them. And as it is, trenches are easy. Trenches are easy in the same way partisans are easy. You can put down a trench and then congratulations, you fucked up the enemy logistics by standing in a trench.
Yeah, but that's no different than, like, say, popping up a foxhole.
No, it's very different than popping up a foxhole, because foxholes only support one person, and they also require 50 BMATs. A tier 1 trench, you don't even need BMATs.
Right, yeah. So
and
it's like
bunkers
so
also
like
cost.
So like a tier 1 trench is totally free.
Yeah.
But you're not making an argument for tier 1 because you're talking primarily.
I'm making an argument for the whole trench bunker ratio. The trench bunker ratio is heavily just borked all across the board.
Okay, so your primary concern is that it seems like it's just as equally advantageous to build a trench as it is a. Or it's not equally advantageous.
Yes.
You may as well. Okay. Well, I mean, let me ask you, like, if you think about like a World War I front line filled with trenches, why do you think we didn't see bunkers there?
Well, we actually saw far more bunkers than we saw trenches because bunkers were effective and small, and you could hide them away in places, and they certainly couldn't be taken down by 5 belts of LMG ammo.
Right. My understanding, though, is like if you did build a bunker in a trench line, it was built on.
If you did build a bunker in a what?
If you built a bunker on a trench line in World War I, you would build it underground, and the reason for that is because it was called a dugout. And the reason you would do that is because of artillery. In those times, artillery was king, and if you even tried to construct anything that even poked up out of the ground, it would just get shelled to hell. And I feel like that's something that we want to emulate here, is that the bunkers themselves shouldn't be the main staple. I would really not have liked it as much if the entire front line was just filled with T1 bunkers. Not trenches, but bunkers.
Well, I'm not even
that,
talking
to me,
about
doesn't...
like singular boxes. I don't like the singular boxes. I think that if the front line was filled with singular T1 bunkers, then that would have been a failing. But the issue is that we don't even see larger bunkers either, because it's like 5 clips of LMG to destroy a tier 2 5 square bunker. 5 squares worth of T2 and 5 LMG clips chew through it. Like,
right, okay, but then, like,
and you're talking about artillery
you saying...
was king of the battlefield for killing bunkers, but we're not seeing bunkers be killed by artillery. We're seeing bunkers get killed by single players running around with SMGs and just shooting them.
But I mean, you can kill foxholes with SMGs. Why do people not build, or why do people continue to build them?
People build foxholes because foxholes shoot at things.
And so do bunkers.
When you put a tier 3 generator in them, yes, but how many hours does it take to make a tier 3 generator, Crazy?
So my concern is that maybe you're comparing trenches to bunkers, but what you really should be comparing is what is the bunkers compared to the other defenses that we used to have? Are they better? And is it costed appropriately?
That's under the assumption that it's easy enough to get AI into bunkers. We can't really get AI into bunkers because first you have to put down the T3 bunker, and that requires 24 hours of nobody deciding, that looks like an easy target for a mortar. On top of that, that's not even talking about the concrete mixer, because concrete doesn't stack and you can't put it into trucks.
But why are we jumping to T3 though? Let's continue to talk about.
Because T3 is the only way that you can get AI into a bunker, and you're talking about the AI as though it is a major selling point of the bunker.
I see.
See, AI is a selling point of bunkers, but AI is a selling point of the late game bunkers that you see built up in the rear lines by a dedicated logistics force. Those bunkers, certainly, they are easily worth the effort to a certain extent. Concrete is still a pain in the ass to get because you have to get components to the mixer, and then you need to get a flatbed to bring the mixer up, and then you need to get a crane to get the mixer out of the flatbed. And then you also can't pick up the mixer while it has concrete in it, so you need to put the mixer out wherever you plan to build the actual bunker system at. But then you also need to go and harvest components and bring it back to the mixer and hope nobody has destroyed, moved, or touched the mixer since you've left, or decided that they're going to build their bunkers in place of whatever you had planned for it.
Okay, so is your prediction then that after the meta has settled, obviously there's a lot of excitement around trenches and things, so people are just going to spam them even if they're not.
Trenches are fun.
But once the meta has settled, your prediction is that nobody will build trenches and bunkers? They're not worth the time and effort?
I think that people will still build trenches for the same reason that people still build sandbags, because at the end of the day, a trench is a sandbag that doesn't cost BMATs. And I think we'll see shovels change hands in the same way we saw medkits change hands. People will just sort of see a shovel on the ground, pick it up, and then build a trench. Even if it's only just a single trench, it's still worthwhile. And I'd like to say on top of that, the trench bridge also adds quite a bit of power to trenches, because it makes them impossible to destroy by a vehicle, and it also gives you cover, which then means that why are you even building bunkers? Oh no, howitzer fire, better run under the bridge.
So once the meta has settled, you still think you think nobody will build any of the bunkers? You think they'll just build gun nests?
I think that they won't build gun nests anymore because gun nests have been removed of a lot of their hardness. I think that we'll see a small amount of T3 bunkers, but we'll only see T3 in the back line. We won't see them anywhere where they could get interfered with. And even then, those will be small in number because partisans will destroy them.
Okay, so let's shift that to what are your predictions for the front line? What do you think the front line is going to look like when the meta?
An absolute fucking mess.
Well, I mean, like specifically, do you think they're going to build trenches? You're going to think they'll build gun nests?
I think that they'll build
bunker?
a few individual trenches here and there, but I think that there won't be any of these labyrinthine trench lines. Because
so what about AI? What kind of AI do you think they're going to see on the front?
We definitely won't see trench AI.
So you think it's just going to be like gun nests up at the front line and nothing else?
Of course, it takes 24 hours to build a T3 bunker.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fair. We'll have to wait and...
Like, I certainly think that they will happen, but it will happen very infrequently because you have to spend 24 hours just to build the bunker, and then from what I understood of what people have said, the generator itself also requires another 24 hours because it's also technically a concrete item. So that's already 2 days you have to wait just to get power to AI defenses from bunkers. Like 2 IRL days.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's fair. And you know what? To be totally fair, we haven't totally ruled out the possibility of using some kind of T2 engine room, but not for this.
Thank fuck. That actually relieves me quite a bit. Another thing I'd like to complain about is how easy it is to just get on top of a bunker. It's one of the most, like, quick, how do we assault the enemy bunker? Stand on top of it. What are they gonna do? Shoot us?
Actually, there was a bug. I don't know if it's still in, but there was a bug that, like, the bunkers will shoot straight up and kill you if you stand on top of it. That was pretty funny.
That's honestly kind of amazing. I would actually like to maybe see rifle garrisons get pushed more up. Maybe they could actually be more on top of the bunker, situated sort of above it. That might even be really cool because then you could see them get used kind of like towers.
You know what I'd really like to see in the future? Don't quote me on this because I'm not even sure this is technically feasible. I really want to see you be able to build on top of the bunkers.
See,
you know, like I want to see you be able to put like sandbags on the top, so you can stand on top and shoot out, or like barbed wire, or hell, like if we're talking like way down the line, I'd love to see where you could actually build a second floor.
So another thing I'd actually like to ask about in this short time frame before the update, full on. Can you let us put cement mixers that have concrete or components in them onto the back of a flatbed so that we can actually, like, harvest components with these things? Because as it is, you have to bring the... I briefly ranted about this earlier. You have to bring the cement mixer to the site where you want to build things, which entails you need a flatbed and a crane, and then you need to get it out, then you need to go and harvest components, then you need to bring the components back, and then you can start building your bunker on the off chance that nobody has actually tried to kill you, the cement mixer, or build their own bunker in that time frame.
I won't rule it out as an impossibility, but it's definitely not like on our mind. I would say, like, I get where the impulse comes from. You want to build like a mobile refinery, but like, I don't know, it's
not even mobile refinery. I just need a way to transport concrete, because concrete is a non-stacking item. Does it not also not stack in trucks? I actually haven't tested.
Yeah, it's unstackable.
So then the issue comes in that you can't really transport concrete at all.
Actually, I want to address something that's written in chat here by Warshed, who says they can't do second floors because of an engine limitation. It's actually not an engine limit. Just an FYI.
It's more of a gameplay limitation.
It was a game. Yeah, it was a gameplay decision. We did it because it was kind of weird when you have to aim upstairs. Like, we actually tested this during the town revamp stuff last year. But anyway, just to get back to that, concrete is unstackable, but the reason we made it unstackable was intentional. We don't want you transporting concrete long distance. Otherwise, isn't that just adding to the Logi game? Like, aren't you just going to set up 10 mixers beside your Logi or your Logi facility, refine it, and deliver it to the front, and just add more things you've got to deliver?
But why would we deliver concrete to the front when it's about as fragile as T2 before it's settled, and it takes 24 hours to settle? That sounds like a lot of investment of resources into something that has no discernible payout in the future, which matters. Like, front lines can shift in Foxhole in a matter of minutes.
That's the point.
Yeah. But what you thought was a stable front line, what you thought was a front line that was stable enough to put a T3 bunker with a generator in 30 minutes ago could be just, oh, hey, look, the enemy has 5 half tracks and the entire front line is evaporating.
Yeah.
And then does that really matter if you transport concrete up to the front line in that situation?
Oh, my argument would be, why would you try to build concrete?
Because concrete's powerful, and you also made the argument as though people would try to transport concrete to the front line.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you said that if players were able to transport concrete, that people would just put their concrete mixers into the refinery and then transport it long distance.
Yeah.
But why would you But then that implies that you have to go some distance to transport. That means more than usually one map away.
Yeah, but that's what we're trying to avoid. Is were you listening? Oh, okay. So this was brought up earlier. So I'm gonna go. Sorry, I'm really tired. Yeah, this was brought up a couple of calls ago.
And you might have been talking to someone else.
Yeah, I was definitely talking to somebody else. But the whole point of this is to reduce logistics. Is if you want to build a concrete bunker, for example, right? You deliver the mixer to the concrete bunker that you want to build, to the area where you want to build. And then the only transporting you need to do is from the component node to the build site. And then the unstackable resource is there. Like, you don't need to transport it. The only thing you needed to transport was the mixer.
That still seems like a lot of work, though, transporting all of those components back to that bunker.
Remember, components are really easy to transport. You can stack them into groups of 100, and you mine them in groups of...
I don't know. It still feels like that's a lot of work for a tier 3.
I think at this point...
that's fair.
I think at this point, a lot of these predictions... the reason why I stayed silent for so long is because I haven't had a handle on these numbers. So clearly you have. So I'm not sure, but I think we're at the point now, again, where we were with a couple calls ago, where it's like, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. We need to collect the data.
I predict that no matter what happens with trenches and bunkers, no matter if they're good or bad, that next war will be fun and people will have fun with trenches.
That's good to hear. That's what I want to hear. Because, honestly, you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether these things are broken or not. We'll fix them. It'll take some time, but we'll fix them. And I hope that everybody has some fun with it. I don't think the numbers are perfect, but you know what? I think right now they're close. Like they're not. They're like 20% close, and we'll change it if we have to.
Me and some other guys were online, and sans the problem of people trying to scream at Sammy for being an ex-colonial and an ex-Alta counter. There were people on the front line, like both colonials and wardens had one guy who had a trench whistle on his mic, and the colonial line, you'd hear a trench whistle go up, and like 30 colonials would pour over the side of the bunker and start charging with bayonets, and then get immediately gunned down by SMGs, because that's what SMGs do. And then the rest would get stabbed by the wardens in the trench line. Then the wardens would send up a trench whistle, and then like 30 wardens would come up and rinse and repeat until somebody brought a half track up and started destroying trenches that way.
That's the buff, dude. That's a buff. That guy who bought the whistle, that he just buffed like all those 30. The buff was the morale. That was the
morale
hype.
buffs. Morale buffs are totally a thing. Like if you've ever had a player play bad bagpipes angrily into their microphone, and then you've seen your entire force just begin swarming like ants, you've seen firsthand the effect morale has on people.
Yeah, well,
sure.
you want the extra bunk benefit is bayonets. You just hand out bayonets to people, and it's like this sudden impetus to charge. +2 morale every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now we just need swords.
Stranger Days, thank you so much for calling. Have you written these down somewhere? These predictions somewhere? I guess you just kind of had them in your head.
I've just screamed at random people about them.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's simple.
Like all the other bitter veterans.
I mean, that works, right?
It works, but then you got 100 people doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
So it makes the whole thing look bad, man.
At KFC. Eventually, he has to write them down somewhere.
No, I don't. That's your job.
Or maybe you know what? If nothing else, he'll remember because of all of our scathing rants about how terrible the bunker system is.
I think people are overestimating how much power they have in terms of like their collective thoughts and
it more just has to do with the bunker system is such an interesting thing to play with, and then to see them be so heavily overshadowed by trenches.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
We'll see. All right, hey, Stranger Days, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a wonderful night.
See you. Well, the point
all
I
right,
was
that's
trying
all
to make,
the time I have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, you can get out if you need to. I know you're tired and you got a big day tomorrow. The point I was just trying to make is that, when 100 people are DMing you, yelling at you in 3 different chats, pinging you, and the amount of casual pingings that all the devs get astounds me. Like when I ping a dev, I treat that like I'm calling the president, right? Like I'm like.
I appreciate that.
Like that is incredible how casually people are pinging people. Like, hey, KFC. Hey, here's a meme. Like, what? He was probably working on something. I don't know, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say it should be that form. Hey, Liquid. But like, I'll get to you in a bit. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, consider that that when you are on a rant with KFC in the Discord, there's probably like at least 7 other rants going on at the same time. Also, and like he might be dealing with those and player abuse reports. I don't know. I don't want to describe your life and defend you for without actually knowing what your life, but like what your life is like. But I will say, like, write it down somewhere. That's why I love this show. Because like we can actually have a discussion with people. Like earlier, I think like an hour ago, 2 guys were going at it in the chat. I think it was Stranger Days and someone else. But like they were going at it in the chat and like that's no. Now imagine throwing 63,000 other people in that chat. Like no, this is horrible. No wonder everyone thinks it's toxic. I actually don't think it's toxic. I think it's just people just talk over each other like I am doing it now with Crazy. Go ahead.
And it's a really fine line we walk too, because we want to be as embedded into this community as we possibly. But I think a big part of actually Matt made a tweet about this recently that was really, really good. But like the problem is that we want to be one of you guys. We want to be a part of the community as much as we are leading it as developers. But I think part of the thing that gets lost in translation is that once you guys start to see us like just people you can talk to, you start to feel like you can talk to us in any way. And I think there's definitely a line that's been crossed a couple of times where we get talked to in a manner that just isn't appropriate. And it's like there's definitely a fine line somewhere between what you're saying, like where you're basically calling the president. We don't want everybody to feel that way. You should be able to talk to us about anything.
Yeah, that was an extreme example, but like talking
then
to
on
your
the
boss
opposite,
or your
yeah. Like we've had to ban some people for some doxing threats recently, and like that's like clearly crossing the line. Like remember that as much as we are a part of your community, that we're also artists, and like if you're talking to the artist of a painting at a museum, you don't tell them it sucks shit and that they should go die. Like it's just not the way to go about it. Like you can be polite, be constructive, and if they're not listening to you, like don't take that like, or sorry, if they're not that they're not listening to you, but if they're not responding to you, if they're not replying, that doesn't mean we're not listening. Like I think a lot of the times we get some pretty harsh criticism that we really, really love to address, but we just can't. It's just, if we answer it, it just adds fuel to the fire. And just try to remember that most of the time, all of the negative and really hostile stuff you guys are saying, like somebody's reading it, and it's really pissing them off, and because they can't talk to you about it. And it's just try to keep that in mind, that we're in there listening.
Yeah, it's the price of transparency, because the moment you start to have weekly dev stream, bi-weekly dev streams, bi-weekly dev blogs, you can ping someone in the Discord at any moment in time. It really, the line should be redrawn, and everyone needs to back 50 feet away from it. I think. I don't know. I mean, like all the calls tonight have been great. Like that's what I want to see, is what I'm saying. Like that call with Stranger Days, and like it looked like it was getting heated, but like that is still leaps and bounds better than like what was going on in this chat earlier, or like what goes on in the Foxhole Discord every 30 seconds. So like I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say this one thing, and then I gotta get off. But and to Stranger's point, I have known him for 3 years, so he does tend to talk to me pretty. He's a good guy though.
I knew. I figured. All right, see you, Crazy. Bye.
Okay, bye guys. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Good night.
It's an honor.
See ya.
Oh boy, Liquid, thank you so much for joining us. RGB man, thank you so much for coming back.
I had to moderate that channel as soon as I saw two strong personalities.
You had to leave?
As soon as I saw those two strong personalities enter that channel, like Stranger and Lek, I was like, oh Christ, dude, it's about to get bad. And it started getting pretty bad in there. And I was like, all right, guys, let's settle down. Yeah. We're all Foxhole friends.
Another thing is, and I will get to you, Liquid. Another thing is like,
I was chilling here, no worries.
People will talk to each other, especially in the Discord, where it's like they'll talk to each other aggressively, but like secretly they know they're messing, right? But like the other 20 people looking at the chat don't know that. Also, there's a chance that even though these two dudes have known each other for 3 years, not KFC and Stranger or whoever, I'm like just a generic example, like they've known each other for like 5 years. You can still piss someone off after knowing them for 5 years. Like you just need to say the right things at the right time. Like you never know.
No, I feel that. I get heated with people in FUD all the time, and then I'll see them on the front line, and I'll be like, "Hey, what's up? Let's push this together."
Yes.
Good. Like we just don't care.
Maybe 95% of the time that may happen, but that one time where you might actually piss them off, you never know, and then it becomes a thing. Oh boy, this is hey, we've been going on for 3 hours and 10 minutes. So continuously talking here, KFC and I. So and RGB man as well. So you know what? That's I think we just needed to vent real quick there. I think this will be our last call. So Liquid, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry you weren't able to catch it with KFC around, but Liquid, what'd you have for us here? Predictions or hopes or stories upcoming for the 45th? What you got?
Well, I'll tell you what, I am curious as to whether or not you've gotten any correspondence from the front line yet, as far as the new technology that's been implemented.
I think that you're talking about like reporters or?
Do you have any first-hand reports from your reporters about it? Do you know what's going on?
Yeah, we sent Mari out there. Yeah, we sent Mari out there to kind of look at the after-war / pre-war, the in-between skirmishes that were going on near abandoned ward, and it was a chaotic sight. Obviously, whenever new technology gets deployed, Everyone
I'll
wants
tell
to
you
use
what,
it.
it's
so,
getting messy.
yeah, no. There's an ambulance every 10 meters.
There's an ambulance every 10 meters. There are
Everyone
virtually
wants
no
to use the
wards
ambulance.
anywhere,
It's great.
And then I am really, I don't know if this has been addressed tonight at all, because I've been busy most of the night. I just now got the chance to get in here. But I really hope that they come up with a way for us to remove the trench husks, because, good lord, there are collapsed trenches everywhere, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
I think part of the
You
problem.
can't walk 3 feet without falling into a collapsed trench.
I think part of the problem was that there was an APC running around outside Abandoned Ward. Just its only job was just running over trenches and destroying them and leaving husks, and it just became a mess in 30 seconds. So I'm sorry, RGB man, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the same thing. It's horrible trying to like do any of that. It's like you just like see nothing but husks. Fortunately, like you could drive over it, but like the issue I'm noticing is, yeah. Well, and the issue too is like battle tanks are just like accidentally running over like tier 1 trenches with like 12 guys inside of it.
Yeah.
And it's like breaking my heart. It's
I
just
do
like,
wonder.
oh,
It sucks because KFC's not here anymore, but like I do wonder. It's tricky. It's very tricky because trenches can be built anywhere, so you need to be able to limit it. You need to be able to remove it, right?
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's the way to go with it, because
but at the same time, trenches, if you want to rely on them, they can't be so flimsy that a vehicle can run them over and as you said, instantly kill everyone in the trench. Additionally, you don't want a situation where you're really gaming it, where now an APC's only job is to just bump into all the trenches, the tier 1 trenches it can find. Maybe that's just the silliness that we're just gonna have to experience for a couple of wars until it gets moved around. Because that's what I'm worried about too. It's tricky. I don't know, Liquid. What were you gonna say?
well, to me, I think it's fine. As far as ease of removal, we've always had to deal with sandbags being pretty flimsy when it comes to vehicles. You could never really trust sandbags to keep you covered if there was a vehicle around.
That is true.
And of course, I'm sure that as soon as the wardens actually get supplied with proper AT, vehicles won't be running around,
That's also true.
driving over all the trenches.
Yeah,
So my primary concern is actually being able to get rid of the husks and unupgrade all of the trenches and bunkers, because the barbed wire gets to be a serious problem. So do all the husks getting everywhere. So does people putting in firing ports and bunkers that you can't expand them because you can't put a doorway there. We need to, like the bridge that you can remove for half cost, needs to be on all the modifications. And sure, you could argue that can promote griefing, but in the same instance, so does actually making permanent promote griefing. There's really no way to win here, other than letting people be able to make the modifications fly, in my opinion.
It's going to take a lot of testing, and by testing I mean just fighting in wars and dealing with it.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. Even with KFC here, I think that's where we would have wound up. So,
I am definitely excited though for artillery.
me too.
Considering how slow.
I know you are with the storm cannon.
Well, no, storm cannon is absolute garbage, and we don't actually plan to use it. I
Really?
hate to say
Okay.
it. I really do, but it's just it doesn't appeal to us. It's too situational and too much investment for something that
Well, it's too
we're going to
defensive.
have.
It's
Well,
too defensive.
Oh no, we use howitzers for defense all the time. In fact, that's where we actually have the most fun with them. But the issue with the storm cannon is that we have to spend a full week's worth of our time. Keep in mind, we have lives and we have shit to do, setting it up, and then we have to pretty much wait and be ready at any moment for them to invade the region that the storm cannon is built in, so that we can jump on it and react before the storm cannon gets captured and destroyed. That's the issue with it. And on top of that, it's going to take us so long to actually react to it because of how much effort it takes to turn the thing.
Yeah, you're too mobile for that. The AR's too mobile.
It's not necessarily that we're too mobile. We would love to be able to use the storm cannon the way it's meant to be used. It's just the fact that it's sadly not particularly useful. It is a region lockdown tool, and that's about it. It's not really. It doesn't really have any good potential as an artillery weapon. Howitzers, on the other hand, exciting.
I know gas shells have been removed, but that's not going to stop us, because now we can actually justify the use of smoke, especially now with the trenches, to cover assault. And at the same time, we'll finally be able to do World War I style, hey, you loaded that thing up with about 100 shells per gun. Now I want you to point your guns down range and fire, and keep firing until I tell you to stop. And we're just going to slowly push that front line forward, clearing out the trenches with a nice long creep and barrage. That I am excited to try. I really am.
Trying to balance between this and the in-game chaos, and it's very tricky.
Oh, I believe that. It's just, we've had a lot of issues as far as logistics goes on the Warden side for the majority of this resistance phase, so honestly I haven't really seen any good, even combat yet. I don't expect to actually see any trench AI. The only time I really think we might see trench AI is if they've pushed up to concrete bunkers with generators in them, and we're able to push them back a little bit of ways, and we start building tier 2 defenses with the trenches. And it'll just be a consequence of, hey, you know, the AI is actually powered here, so we might as well use it, and less of a, hey, we should put up trench AI because trench AI is good.
And so, I was going to say, if you don't mind, kind of looking forward to that. I'm kind of tired of essentially running into just AI defenses with no actual...
Honestly, I haven't seen very many foxholes or pillboxes or anything at all. It's just been trenches.
I think part of it right now is just the excitement of everybody wanting to see the new tech. It may also just be the new meta of, you know, like, let's just build the trenches, because I mean they are such a viable defensive structure. I mean, it's going to go to the principle, like, you're going to probably fire off, you know, 20-30 rounds before you actually hit somebody, you know, like before you actually do damage, if everybody's just sitting in a trench exchanging shots.
The game is just so much better when there is no AI.
I agree.
It's so much more enjoyable when you can have this enemy position that they've dug into with trenches, and you can get out your carbine with a bayonet, and you can jump into their trench, surprise them, bayonet most of them, because that's what the bayonet was made for. Bayonet actually has a use now, and it's amazing. Then capture that trench, and then help your guys move up into that trench, and now voila, that trench is yours. Now you just move to the next one. It's a whole lot more fun than pushing into these hard AI defenses that you just kind of have to shoot at until they go away.
Well, kind of going back to what you were saying about, you know, we have lives and, you know, we can't just babysit something. AI is just kind of, and we all know this, but AI is the necessary evil because, you know, in a real war, you're stationed there your whole 24/7 until you get shipped home. In Foxhole, you play until you kind of get bored or you're not having fun anymore, and then
until you get shipped home.
Yeah,
until you get shipped home.
Get shipped home until mom calls dinner downstairs. But do you? Yeah. So, and I guess the wider question with this is, as Foxhole grows, as it starts to realize its kind of potential as a 24/7 MMO sandbox real-time war simulator. Put that in your Steam tags. But really, as it becomes a 24/7 war simulator, how will it reckon with the fact that, you know,
people have lives?
People have lives. It's so demanding, because at least with something like World of Warcraft, which is a notorious time sink for people, at least then you can just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna hold my character here. I'll miss a few raids, but nothing's really happening. But if you let that happen in Foxhole, well, this thing I've been trying to build, you know, this front I've been trying to push, you know, the enemy is, they're rotating in new players all the time. Now I have to do this, you know. What's kind of the limit there? Obviously the limit is, well, you know, just don't play until you know, don't push yourself. But at the same time, I guess what's the end goal here? Build your clan to the point where you have organized schedules 24/7 with people from around the world, I guess.
Well, and that's kind of where, to some extent, like, I'm okay with, like, essentially that backline concrete AI, right? Like, that's where I think it's good. Like, I think what we're trying to go for is more or less like that first line, you know, should be that basic all hands on deck, right?
All hands on, yeah.
Yeah,
we're going back and forth all day long.
Yeah.
And you actually start making progress, that's when you start bumping up against the AI, because the AI is just there to prevent
it's,
for lack of a better word, night capping.
Yeah, and that's essentially, it's like, I think, a good balance between what what Captain Arms is saying here, or I guess Joffrey Jennings saying versus, and what we were trying to it's that balancing act, and because you don't want it to where, you're just battling AI constantly day in and day out, because there for a while that's what it felt like, and it's just not exciting. It's exciting breaking the player morale, and it's exciting battling enemies that, know the risk and chance of losing this position, or even understanding, hey, if we fall back to this line, it might just be better for us to retreat to the line and hold this position and let them take it. Those kind of actual decisions, and that's where that third line, essentially, or that that last line, is really meant as kind of this will take them probably a few hours to get through for the next set of people to come in, and the AI is there to kind of as a preventative measure, which I think is a necessary thing. In some sense, it's the necessary evil, unfortunately. Unless I get paid to play Foxhole 24/7, then it's completely the necessary evil.
This kind of brings me back to my PlanetSide 2 days. I'm a PlanetSide 2 refugee. That used to be my main bag until Foxhole came along. There was this outfit, because the clans there were called outfits. There was this outfit called Phoenix Battalion on the Emerald server before it used to be the Matherson, or the Waterson server, I think. But either way, regardless on those names, this outfit had, I think, over 5,000 clan members, or outfit members, or more than that, 7,000. They might have gone up to 10,000. It seemed endless. It seemed like a bottomless pit. And
almost
they
like
actually,
an endless shore.
Really. And I don't think this is it anymore. I have not touched that game in years. But at one point in time, for a good couple years, they had a platoon, like 3 squads full of people, like running 24/7, and it just snowballed constantly onto itself, where people were just cycling in and out, and you had 24/7 Phoenix Battalion coverage on the battlefield, and it was just astounding that was able to even able to happen. Now, granted, that's PlanetSide 2, and it's there's no logistics whatsoever, so maybe Foxhole is just far too complicated of a game for something like that to build, but you never know. And I'm not even really trying to make a point here. I'm just trying to say, like, it's fascinating to think of the possibilities, and just, I don't know. This is such a unique thing, Foxhole, and
I'm really excited to see down the road, because I know that if Foxhole had a player base that it is more than capable of supporting right now, to where you could have a consistent front line from fucking endless shore all the way over to like from island to island.
It could absolutely
a player base that large, that was on 24/7, that spanned worldwide, a player base that comparable to something like a larger title like CS:GO had, it would be very, very fun. But
we excuse the fact that the servers, the technology isn't there yet to host that many people. Also, because we want to keep it as one war, and one instance of the war, and also things like, no one would have or I should say, the game, functionally, mechanically, the game could not support that many people. But yeah, it's the possibilities. The possibilities, I think, is what makes people so frustrated. Because this is, I don't know, Clapfoot's really, they're pioneering something here. They're pushing the envelope in so many ways.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds like I'm sucking their dick hard, but really.
No, I get it. There is no other game like Foxhole, and not even in the slightest. There are other games that try.
Yes, and it's
but
hopeful,
they don't come close.
But at the same time, it's so frustrating because.
I know we had Stranger in here earlier, or not Stranger, or who was it? Who was it in here earlier that was like, with this game and that game, and I'm like, I understand, games have, every game's got similar problems. I'm like, but this game is so unique in its own way. Like, every problem has to be handled in a totally different manner.
It's new. It is 100% new. There is nothing that the devs can fall back on to rely on to say, well, they handled this problem in this way, so we should try something similar.
And it's good. It's good to bring comparisons in from other games. That's smart. That's a smart thing to do. But yeah, at the end of the day, everything's so connected. Oh boy.
I will say, I have seen a lot of people calling for, say, like, more YouTubers need to play the game and advertise it.
I disagree.
And it needs to be.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
I honestly don't think the game is in a state where it is ready for that kind of publicity. We don't need a player base that large yet, because all that's going to do is get a bunch of people on the game, see how
unfinished
unbalanced
and unfinished it is.
I'd be like, well, this is a waste of time, this is a waste of money, leave bad reviews on Steam.
Exactly.
It would almost kill the game.
RGB, what were you going to say?
I was going to say I'm waiting for the update where I can sit in the factory making the nut and bolt that I have to attach to the tank using my tools and stuff like that. That's the update I'm really looking forward to. And then passing it down the line to the guy who's adding in the torque and suspension.
Yeah.
Dare I say that may be soon. With modular buildings and this newfangled upgrade system that we have, it may well be possible in the future to see upgradable vehicles.
If I'm being honest with you, I would totally be cool, especially like these janky battlefield modifications. It would be cool to see something like, you could add sandbags to the battle tank, right? Protect itself, like, let's say, because obviously, the RPG is just a shaped charge, or at least, in theory, it's supposed to be, right?
I am curious as to how y'all would feel about, say, more realistic vehicle damage in the game.
I think that needs to happen. I don't know if they'll have time for it anytime in the next 2 years, but that's just too good of an idea. Like something you would see out of Men of War or Company of Heroes, where like your tank treads, just depth.
I think definitely what the game needs, something that the game is definitely lacking right now, is a tank crew. Right now, it's so arcadey. It feels like you're playing like a game on miniclip. You know what I mean? Instead of an actual World War II kind of game.
Sometimes no clip.
Sometimes no clip. But what we really need to see is vehicles that are going to take. You're sitting in your vehicle and you're like, oh god, if we fuck up this engagement, we're dead. And you enter the engagement. All of a sudden, you get hit from somewhere. Your entire crew's stunned because you have no idea what just happened. 2 of your crew members aren't responsive. Turns out they got killed by the shell impact. So now you have to move around in the tank and try and get back to safety before you get absolutely destroyed. That would be amazing.
And that's in the case where, like, the shell types would be
I like how you're just calling for nerfing yourself, essentially. Sorry, I interrupted you, but I just had to say that. Like, yeah, I want all this depth. I wanted to make it really difficult to be a tanker on the battlefield. I'm sorry, RGB.
Well, keep in mind, at the same time, if you make tanks more realistic, you make them harder to deal with.
Yeah, that's true.
If you give tanks coaxial MGs and armor that is actually functional, and a kind of system where you can just sit there as a tank all day with rifles and machine guns plinking off the front and have no worries whatsoever. They should be absolutely terrifying if you're not properly equipped to deal with them.
And that's when, like,
and
it would honestly be so fitting, especially considering kind of like the steps going forward. Like, there's a lot of depth being added based off this update alone, right? You have the situation now where you're able to basically, there's the ambulances, right? Like, I know it's something so silly and minor, but it's like an element of that game now that we get to see, right? There's the actual medical side of it. That thing that we always kind of talked about, like, wow, it would be so cool to drag your friend and heal him up, or be able to, retrieve bodies and bring them back. And, like, at least in my world, I'm like, man, that'd be so cool. It's always something, like, I'd love to see in a game. Like, not everybody's a fighter, not everybody's a builder, not everybody's a logistics driver. And some people like to be medics, and some people really get into it, And I absolutely love when I get to be a medic because it's one of the most satisfying things knowing like you are the one who's holding the line together, right? Like, you know, you're saving the lives of guys that otherwise would have to waste material to come back, get a new gun. You know, you're saving time and material, and I think that's such a satisfying. Satisfying piece.
100%.
You know, except for when like you and 10 guys are in a circle and then get howied, and that hurts.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. It's been 3 hours and 38 minutes since the show started. So
yes, I did
good
not
times.
expect it to run anywhere near this long. I'm honestly
No,
just
no,
happy
it's fine.
to show up.
It's good. It's good. It's before the big update. I'm just afraid I might lose my voice before we actually get to report on anything tomorrow. But yeah, it's been a good episode.
So
Liquid,
is that clarification that we are going to see Mari or Dr. Oliver on the front line tomorrow? Is that what I'm hearing?
You might. You might not. I don't know. I really don't know how everyone will feel tomorrow because this has been going on for so long. But no, I love getting all the callers in. RG, I want to thank KFC for taking time out of his day because he's been I've been seeing him field so many inquiries in the run-up to this update, and then he took about 3 hours out of his time, further time out of work, to continue to talk to kind of go back into work for an extra 3 hours and talk to people, continuously verbally engage with people for 3 hours. So yeah, KFC, thank you so much for that. RGB, thank you for being a sideman here for tonight. And
welcome.
And all of our callers, really all the calls were fantastic. I know they get heated all the time, but that's honestly fine because I love it. Verbal is so much better than it's honestly better than Reddit, but honestly Reddit is so much better than Foxhole Discord. So you know what? We'll leave it there. Good night and good fight. Have a good one.